I'm ready, am I? Good. Right, good evening, everybody. It's John Ashby here again on behalf of the Exhibition Budgeriggar Forum. This is the second of our live features, our live interviews. And what a treat we've got for you again this time. Frank and Joe McGovern, who are the current club show champions and have been for the last couple of years. Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening. Evening.
How are you?
Very good.
All good.
Yeah,
All good.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you very much to begin with, just for agreeing to allow me to interview this evening. As I said, as I said to you earlier, having interviewed you, had the pleasure of interviewing you at the club show the last couple of years, I was a bit concerned I was going to run out of questions, but we've gone out to the members on the EBF, and they've been kind enough to send me quite a few on top of the long list I already had. So without further ado, we'll go straight into them, if that's okay.
Fine.
So,
we're ready when you are.
Lovely. Right, so probably a good place to start. I know most people know who you guys are. Can you just tell us about your notable successes in the last couple of years, please? Just to remind everybody.
Notable successes. Well, it's the club show. Obviously, we've won it the 2 years, last year and in 2018. That's great. Also the best young bird in 2017. And Ghalib Al Nasser rightly tells me, or informs me, that is a true record. No other bird has ever done that before. People have had best in show with a bird 2 years running, but they've never also had the best young bird in show with the same bird. So we have produced a bird which nobody else has managed to do before. So that's something in itself. Of course, along with these, this grey cock has been so successful. We've also had 2 best opposite sex NEA awards. And Joe was best young bird in show in 2014 with a sky blue cock, which we liked that bird that much. We had him stuffed, and he's now based in the bedroom. So anyone who cares to visit can see him in all his glory.
Oh, brilliant.
He died, and he was in very good shape. No other bird had got to him. It was like we walked in on the moment he passed away, type of thing. And it was just like we took his ring off, and then I gently put him in the bin, type of thing. And he was like, "No, I'm going to taxidermy him." So
he was going to. We were going to keep him for old time's sake. Yeah. I said no. That would mean putting his leg. No, I want to taxidermy him. So we kept him there. To gentlemen who specialise with these things. And, he's got 2 feet on a perch, and he could win. Listen, if anybody wants him at one of their shows, he can still win best in show anyway.
Fantastic. Well, that must be catching, because I know when we spoke to Mick Freetley in our first interview, I know that Mick keeps, he's got several notable winners, his and others, in his freezer that he sort of suggests he's going to have stuffed at some point. So it's obviously people, top champions seem to struggle getting rid of these birds. They love them that much, which I can fully understand. So
it's for every bird, because it depends on the condition of the bird when it arrives at the specialist person doing the taxidermy. But we got lucky with this, and he looks great. It's a thing to see, put it that way.
Oh, brilliant! I'd love to see a photograph of that. That'd be fantastic. Yeah. Excellent stuff. And how's the club show Gray, the winner? Is he? Dare I ask? Is he okay? Is he breathing still, or is?
We were looking forward to maybe being able to do it for a 3rd time.
Defend.
We had him paired up early on, and he went a bit tired after filling all the eggs in the first round.
Good.
We got 1 chick off.
We ended up getting 1 chick in the first round, and then he started to look a bit tired, and we wouldn't take chance with him. So he went back in the flight, and now he looked a bit iffy for quite some weeks. Like
we did think the worst of it,
because one day I saw him in the corner and he had wings out, and I thought, that's just so cool. And we put him in what we call our sick cage or whatever. It's not heated or nothing. Cage separate just for birds around too.
Yeah, just a stress relief cage really.
And
more
put
than
them on a
anything.
few different medicines that we have on the shelf, things that I've
the things that we
used for years. And anyway, 2 weeks later, he was back on the perch, right as rain.
And now he's looking
Brilliant.
Now he's the best bird again in the flight.
If there was a club show, we have a lot of good birds in our main flight with our what we call our keeps bird, and he is still one of the very best birds in there visually. And he would be 3 years old now if he got to the club show this year.
So we're going to retire him from breeding completely now. So obviously it's a bit unlucky for every person in the country if they've had good birds this year. That there's going to be no shows, but hopefully we can have them for next year. So we're not going to breed from them again. We're just going to see if we can get to the club show one more time and see if
a point of interest about this cock, the grey one, bred a young grey who won the CC at last year's club show. He won the young bird normal grey CC and was the 3rd champion young bird in the show. He now is in that category. Alongside his dad. You cannot tell them apart. They are like peas in a pod.
He's if not better. He's a bigger budgie, so he's just not more. He doesn't have the showmanship as the club show winner does have. But he definitely has the size. And if we have to send both of them to the club show, then or any show really, then that's what will happen.
Brilliant. Because I know when we spoke at the club show, I remember you saying that you've got, as well as great fertility in your birds, you've got longevity as well. Because I think that particular line, that's really long lived as well, isn't it? That particular family.
Yes, it is. I mean, I've just mentioned there the sky blue cock that won best young bird for Joe in 2014. We have still got birds with rings from when Joe was intermediate, and they are now 6 years old.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
They have got 2014 rings on. The birds Joe would show. When Joe had the Sky Young Bird at the club show, he had the 4th best intermediate young bird with a grey cock, and he is J37 of 14. And we had babies off him last year when he was 5 years.
Really?
Retired.
Fantastic.
We paid him up this time, but he's still got both tails and all his flights, and he's 6 years old now.
Yeah. See, that's really unusual in a modern day budgie as well, isn't it? To clean, be complete, be alive, and be filling eggs at that age is brilliant.
The big
budgie,
amazing. He's quite a buff budgie, so it's quite surprising. But again, we kind of treat them fair when they produce so well for us for a long period of time. We do give them a retirement. Basically, we don't breed off them till the day they die. Basically, we kind of go, all right, he's done his part. He's done us very proud type of thing, and then we kind of give them an early retirement, which kind of all of us look forward to, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Another point of interest, particularly in the Northwest shows last year, people have seen a young albino cock of ours, and he was best young bird at 2 championship shows in the Northwest last year, and best opposite sex young bird at Lancashire Cheshire Society. Now, he couldn't go to the club show because he had 2 ped feathers right where you don't want them, in the middle of his cap. I wouldn't risk taking in case they bled at the show. So he took his brother, who would never ever beaten him, and he won the CC at the club show and was 5th champion young bird. So it gives you an idea how good this other bird is. He's rather unbeatable. Anyway, the point I'm going to make is his father is number 2 of 15. Now that's one bred last year. He bred our best albinos again this year with the same hen. 2 of 15.
Yeah, and he's back in the flight now, but he is still one of the fittest birds in there. He flies around everywhere. He's chirping. He would, if you paid him up again now, he would breed again. You get everyone will have them birds in their studs, and they just seem to just last forever. it's a very strange thing, but
Now, I would say it may not be possible for some people to have those birds in their studs, because if you're in the habit of inbreeding your birds, I find that those types of lines of birds don't last as long. They don't live as long.
good point.
Now, our birds, we do not inbreed. All the lines are line bred, so the birds are as furthest away from each other as possible to pair them. They're all very good looking birds, and they probably are related going back generations, if you like. But it comes together to breed quality birds in a line bred management rather than inbreed. That's how we've.
Okay. That's really interesting, because I know a lot of for a lot of newbies and people sort of working their way through the hobby, they get onto a good line, or they bring something good in, and it's a question people often ask is, how should I be using, really good stud cocks and big if someone makes a massive outlay and manages to get their hands on a good outcross, how they should maximise it. But you say breed from it, but the offspring don't put back too close.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we are proof of the pudding, and the stories we've just told you about number 2 of 15 and J37 of 14, so they're proof of the pudding that the things that we do with breeding are correct, and there's no other better way.
Yeah. See, the other people might be listening to this thinking, well, my stud's not big enough. I only keep 50 to 100 birds. Well, there's still room for still line breeding. You just have to use outcrosses as well as using your line bred birds. You might only have 3 or 4 families within them 100 birds, but you can still line breed. And if you get a £20 outcross once a year, twice a year, then you can keep the bloodline fresh type of thing. There's kind of, well, people still do. I still speak to people now, and they're pairing birds up to uncles and aunties, to stepbrothers and stepsisters. It's just what people do, but they don't kind of see the future of it. They don't see like a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. They only see that instant year result type of thing. That's all they want. But later down the line, that can have a damaging effect to basically your stud. And then that's where it kind of explodes. But there might be people there sitting, you say, I've been doing it for years. But it's the road to ruin.
Well, life seems to be, people in a lot of hobbies seem to want instant success, don't they? Again, when we interviewed Mick the other week, he was the same. And, I suppose, and would you guys agree that patience is the real key aspect in this hobby? It's not, you can buy a bit of success in the hobby, but to maintain it is just patience and hard work. Is that right? Is that what you found?
Exactly. Line breeding is the only way to go. And I'm a big fan of Joe Manus in Germany, and he taught me as a young man that you don't need to inbreed birds to breed the super birds. And he taught me through how he worked his stud. I would spend the whole day with Joe as a young man in my early 30s, and Joe was absolutely wonderful with me, telling me how he put his stud together, and he's continued that same way, and we're now 30 years on, and Joe is still breeding his birds the same way. He does not inbreed, and we just follow the same route.
Brilliant.
Being able to keep budgies all this time. A lot of people don't come into the hobby till they're late in life. So they haven't got 30 years maybe to put the stud together like we have, and I appreciate that's a problem. The disappointing thing is, if people are determined to inbreed, what will happen is the first thing you lose is ability. Isn't it a shame when you breed the perfect budgie, like our grey cockapoo, as perfect as they come as far as I'm concerned, and then you pair him up to a hen, and because he's come from birds which have been inbred year after year, and he does not fill an egg, your chance of breeding a bird something like him have gone. If he doesn't fill an egg, haven't they? And if his brothers don't fill the eggs either, the whole thing starts to fail. And that line then is lost. And you've then got to start again, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Saying what we said to you before, the grey cock who was best in show at last year's club show bred the best young grey for last year's club show. Now, isn't that just a fantastic thing? That is achievable in the way that we line breed the stud. That's absolute proof of what we're talking about, isn't it? That cock is the club show winner, has bred 32 babies in 3 years. And I think we've still got them all bar one.
Oh, really?
Now, again, because we're such a large stud of birds, we've been able to put his progeny across the stud. You know, we've got birds in our albino line that have come down from him. You see, we've paired one of his sons up with an albino hen. We've now got split albino cocks.
But the important thing there is to have them split albino cocks from that family, but also have your individual albino line running separately. So then once they produce, you can still use this line to keep the line breeding, keep going. Understand? So there's a method.
Brilliant.
We are lucky. I mean, we breed a lot of birds here, and I know it's easy for me to spout line breeding. And as Joe just rightly pointed out before, it's not easy with a small group of birds. You have to keep bringing the right type of birds in, but try and bring those birds in from the same source. Because if you bring birds in from the same source that's been successful for you, those birds will be carrying some of the blood that you're already working with, hopefully distantly apart from what then you've got a better chance of creating birds with the same features. If there's a close relation somewhere with those birds, then it kind of just sort of fits with your line. Here's an example. For many years, I only went to Joe Manus probably over a period of 10 years. I'd never bought a bird anywhere else. From the 90s, from say 1990 through to year 2004, I never probably bought anywhere else. Didn't have to. But then I thought, I've kind of reached my goal with Joe. I'm not probably going to do any better than I can because of all the birds I've already brought in. And I heard of someone selling their stud of birds, and it was basically 50% Frank Silver. Well, of course, as you all know, Frank Silver's best birds all came from Joe. So we made a big effort to buy that stud of birds, and it was 230 birds altogether, and more than half of them were from Frank Silver.
Wow.
So this is what brought our stud. Before we did this, we were winning CC quite regular. An odd best young bird here and there, but hardly ever won a best in show. And once we mingled this stud of birds in 2008 with the Joe Manus line, it changed the birds. The birds became larger. Maintaining that width of head with a beautiful cap, we managed to breed a bird which was a bit bigger in the shoulder, and we were getting that bit more back school. But again, you see, the birds had a relation to Joe Manus, you see, and that's why we bought them. And we are still now getting the fruits of buying that stud of birds in 2008. It was now 12 years.
Can I just jump in on that one quickly? When you bought the birds, how did you work with that? Because I know often people say, particularly for people who are perhaps of a more senior age coming into the hobby, that, and I think I read something by Fred Wright a little while ago. He said maybe that's the way to go, is to maybe to push yourself through the hobby a little bit quicker, is to maybe try and buy a stud and then sort of dispense of the lesser birds.
Because that you get value for money.
Sure.
So you get some absolute super birds. And of course, I think what you were going to ask me was, how many of these birds did I use? Well, naturally.
Yeah, that's it. What did you keep?
Now, and you know, believe it or not, some of the birds I got in on this had Frank Silver rings. They were birds he bought off Frank Silver, and
Brilliant.
still using them as stud birds.
Yeah.
So what we did,
There's only
I
a
probably kept
handful,
about the 40 best cocks to work with, and I probably kept all of the best young hens. And
There weren't that many that though, was it?
there wasn't there was, of course, on the best of the young cocks as well.
Yeah, I'd say about 100 we kept up to 230.
And so I let people know that I was letting at least half of these birds go, and people came from everywhere. I nearly got my money back on selling half of the birds off.
Brilliant.
Because I sort of got the birds because I was buying them in bulk, somewhere between 40 and 50 pounds each, no matter how good they were. Because I was buying 230 birds at once. But I sold a lot of the birds off between 100 and 200 pounds a go. So I kind of got my money back. So it didn't actually cost me anything. So it's a clever thing to do if you can find the right stud birds to buy. Doesn't work for everybody, but I was able to make it work for me.
And we did go into a bidding war with 2 or 3 other breeders as well, so it kind of crept into a 5-figure mark, didn't it?
Well, I offered him £7,000 for the stud to begin with, and he said, I want to do the club show for my last time, and if I don't get a better offer at the club show or anyone before the club show, then the birds are yours. 3 or 4 people offered him the same amount of money at the club show, you see, which was 3,000 or 4,000 more than I'd offered. So he rang me after the club show. He said, Fred, I've been offered X amount of money. He said, are you willing to match it or better it? I said, well, I'll certainly match it, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I will better it by £1,000. And if I do that, does that mean the birds are mine? And he said, yes, because everyone else is not go above the figure that they've quoted. So we got the birds. And it was
that is a lot of money, but that's a lot of birds for a lot of money. There's still a lot of birds in there as well, isn't there? So
I know people don't get into that position, but he's created himself that opportunity for all the years that he's worked hard at it. So once you get kind of at the top level, you know yourself, you go to places or you hear of prices people selling for birds, they've got themselves to that level where people are after them. It's supply and demand. The price, it's like everything in the world, how it controls. It's like if you're going on holiday in the next 2 months, everything's going to be sky high because it's supply and demand. And that's the position he's put himself in over 145.
And the other thing is, if you're buying a top stud, I mean, that the guys put that stud together spend a lot of money, and they're all related, aren't they? People forget how much time and effort goes into the birds. It's not even the cost of the outcross or the cost of the seed. I always think if I equate how many hours of washing up and cleaning and etc. I put into the birds, it's thousands.
A hobby. Well, look at it that way. It's your hobby, and
well, that's it.
If you're enjoying your hobby, you can't begrudge the hours that you put in.
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying when you're buying a stud, you are buying someone else's hard work as well, aren't you? So I think there comes a point where you've got to expect they're going to be a fair sum of money for a good group of birds.
That is, because his stud is very good. He was kind of a leading intermediate, and for the people that want to know his name, it was Paul Cunliffe. So it was he was starting to really show on the intermediate bench, and he actually won a best young bird that year, if I remember rightly, with that cinnamon. So, yeah. And that cinnamon alone, you would pay a lot of money that he won with.
Well, when I went to visit Paul the first time, this was in the June or July before the club show, 3 or 4 months off, and I saw this baby cinnamon. I didn't want to buy a stud of birds. I just went round because I heard he was selling up. And I said, is it possible I could just buy 2 really good young cocks off you? I'll give you £1,000 each for them. He said, no, whoever buys the birds, he said, that's a great offer. Thank you very much. Whoever buys the birds, and gives me the best amount they can. Those two birds are part of that amount. So he wouldn't take £1,000 each off me for the two best cinnamon cocks he'd bred that year. He wanted to sell them as a complete stud, and that was a very fair thing for him to do. He said,
absolutely,
every bird you see in here, no one's getting any bird at all. He's none of the babies, none of the adults. Whoever buys the stud gets every bird in the aviary. I said, well, that's fair enough. And then I offered him the 7. I said, well, I'll give you 7,000 for everything. And he said, well, I'm doing the club show first. And the money went up quite a bit before we got back after the club show. But we got, and it was one of the best things I've ever done.
Well, it sounds like you got good value for money out of it. So which is good news. Can I ask you, just jump in on something you said earlier? When your grey was ill, can I just trouble you? What medication did you give that bird to get it back? What's in your medicine cabinet? Can I ask?
Well, many years ago, I had a problem with. I lost 40 birds in 2 weeks, and I got in touch with Dr. Baker, and he asked me to send samples of the birds, etc. And he come back to me and he said, Frank, he said, what you need to do is I'll give you a letter for your local vet, and you must pick up Baytril, Baytril. Many people would. And that was it. We kept him on Baytril for basically 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And he was on a Baytril for 1 week, and he didn't get an awful lot better after 1 week. But all of a sudden, 6 or 7, he's up on the pitch preening, and that's always a good sign.
Absolutely.
He sat on the floor and virtually didn't move very much. Baytril is not the easiest thing to get your hands on if you're not, if you don't have an account with your local vet. And the way to do is you've got to go see your vet, ask him to come and see your birds, and make a point to him. You want to have this on your shelf as a prevention rather than cure. Now, what Dr. Baker told me to do was to use it across the stud twice a year. Use it prevention rather than cure. But when you've got a sick bird, it's the best thing for a cure that well, for me, that's known to man.
Yeah, it's like a human, even antibiotics. It's kind of a double, like a 2-3 day turnaround, and you're like, well, you feel like a different person, not a different budgie.
We've saved so many super birds with this product, Baytril. Yeah. And it was, say, Dr. Baker, who was the BS spec 2 years ago. Very, very helpful man. And I have at least one bottle on my shelf at any one time.
Yeah. It's quite important. There's different measurements of it. So I know you can buy Baytril online. It's not the right ingredient that we use. So we can't recommend the Baytril that you can buy off eBay or certain websites. It has to come from your local vet. And it's the version 2.5 mil, not 10 mil, which other people have been buying. We can't recommend that. We used it. We don't know what it would do. We can only recommend what we use and how we go about getting it.
I absolutely agree about having these products in stock as well. I've got my small fridge in my garage with my couple of. I've been using metronidazole. I got put onto by that nice vet Kevin Eatwell, but it's no good. As I say, I've struck up a friendship with my vet. But I found you need it there. If you see a sick bird, you've got a very short window, haven't you, to treat and medicate the bird to get it back. So I do agree it's good to have these things in stock. But it's interesting that you do give antibiotics as a preventative twice a year. I know I've heard this discussion before. Some people say no, only give it when you've got clinically sick birds. But it's interesting that you do treat the whole flock all at one time. Yes. I suppose
4 weeks before the main breeding, which is basically around the date of the club show, because we just stood up, every cage possibly available. 4 weeks after the club show, we will start to pair birds up. But the birds will have been on the Baytril across the stud 4 weeks before the club show. It's basically, it'll clear them of things they might be carrying. It's not a cure for megabacteria, by the way. I'm not saying it's megabacteria, but it is a very good cure as an antibiotic against virtually everything else. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So again, it just brings the birds very, very fit.
Yeah, it's like Spark. We also use Spark
when the shows are on.
Around the show season. But again, if sometimes, say if the bait drill doesn't work, sometimes put Spark in the water, because obviously that is stress related or sick birds.
Now that's a bird care company product, is Spark, and so is now the biggest one for breeders to get their birds onto leading up to the breeding season. As I just mentioned, the bait drill is a one-off thing. We'll use just over 2 or 3 days. Once we've used it, that's it. We change, and we'll put the birds onto Daily Essentials 1, and it's a bird care.
Daily Essentials 1.
Now that is the best thing in the world for bringing your birds fertile before breeding.
Okay. And that, how long have you used that for? Many years, or?
I've used it since I learned about it. How long have Bird Care Company been going? 20 years, 25? I've used
something like that, I think.
I've used it. I can't remember when I first ordered it. I've used it virtually at least 20 years.
Fantastic. And it made a big difference the first year you used it. Was it really that notable?
Yes.
We spoke to breeders this year, recently in the past month during lockdown, 2 Scottish breeders actually. And we put them on to Daily Essentials 1. And they've told us that they've had instant results.
Birds that haven't filled eggs, all of a sudden, who've never filled eggs, or all of a sudden, they are now filling eggs and never did before.
Mm. And is that just a breeding season product, chaps? Is that something you just put in your soft food, and is it all just for the breeding season?
Goes in your water, turns the water yellow.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you change it it depends on how busy you are. Sometimes I maybe leave it in the drinker for 3 days. Then you take it out and give them clean water, because any of these things can cause acid on the bird's stomachs, etc. If you don't want to be feeding birds these liquids every day of every week. You know, you must give them a break back to fresh water again. Because they're toxic. Any of these products are toxic, give them over into time, and you'll start killing your birds off. All these things are fine. Use them sensibly and not overdo. You can't overdo any of these products.
It wouldn't be like toxic. It's going to kill them instantly. It's more of a you need to even it up. It's like a human body. You have to drink Coke every day. You need to drink water as well. Basically, you need fresh water. It's just how your body works and how a budgie works. It's
a case of flushing your. It's the bird takes these medicines to give it what you're looking for. With your A, D vitamins will bring the birds fertile. But then you've got to flush the birds through the kidneys, the liver, and everything else. You've got to flush it all through. And then you're flushing the birds through by putting them on fresh water for 3 days. Simple.
Sure. Do you give them tap water, guys? Is that tap water or bottled water?
Tap water is fine to the stud. Once babies come, we don't give any of these vitamins in the water. Once the baby they're cooled water only. Yeah. No tap.
Okay.
Water. Yeah, we have a mounted kettle on the wall which we fill up. It's probably about 3-4 litres, and that boils overnight. And then on the next day, we can give it to the birds, basically. But birds with babies, we don't give them anything with nutrients in or anything. It might not prove to kill them because we don't know that. But
I mean, my reason for doing this, we believe little babies, if they get too much these vitamins, which is consumed by the parents, I think there's a toxic in these vitamins. But that's my belief.
That's a belief, not a
If I,
opinion.
babies hatch, the little, so what boiled water, cool boiled water, the little babies live in virtually every box, providing that they're being fed properly, of course. No,
of course, yeah, that helps.
Yeah.
Right. Well, do you know we've been? Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, when you were a baby, your mother would give you boiled water from it, let it cool, and give it to you, wouldn't she? She wouldn't go straight to the tap and give you water in your bottle from the tap. Sterilize. For any baby, I think, no matter what we talk about, they've got to build an immunity system through our tap water. Well, fine, after 4 or 5, they can go back on tap water. But for me, while the little babies are in the bottle, 1 day to 3, 4 weeks old, boiled water only. That's our method.
That's really interesting, because I know I've read elsewhere when people have said, like human babies, it takes a long time to build up that immunity. So I've never thought of that. I've just kept feeding mine standard council pop, as they say, but just tap water. So well, that's really interesting. I might have to give that a try myself, because you're right. Although the water's chlorinated and all the bacteria is killed in it, I suppose that chlorine's not going to be, and the other bits in the water still going to perhaps be a bit too heavy for the pinky's systems. So
yeah.
And when did you start doing that? When did you start boiling the water? Has that been donkey's years ago as well?
It's something I've done since I was a beginner. I've never done it any other way. A local champion breeder told me that was the way to do it. My local champion breeder was Tommy Williams, Tommy Lunt. I've probably had a conversation with them, but for me, it makes common sense. It's not a lot of the things that we do. It is common sense for me, and I have done it since day one. I don't think I've ever done it any other way.
Okay, and it's worked, so that's it. So you obviously,
our breeding seasons are good generally every year. So we don't lose many little ones in the box.
What? Well, we've been chatting about 40 minutes. I haven't asked you any of my questions yet, which is really brilliant. It's so easy. So carry on. I was fretting that I wouldn't have enough questions, but I think I'm going to be all right for a second interview and a third probably.
I think what you've spoke about so far is very useful information for a lot of people out there listening.
Very relevant.
Honestly, guys, everything you've said has been really interesting. I mean, I'm a kind of novice going into intermediate, and I feel I've learned a stack already. So, and we've had a couple of new. There's a new guy from Croatia who's joined the forum today, and he's really looking forward to the interview this evening. So for real newbies, I mean, everything you've said will be really helpful for them. So thank you for sharing. So I suppose the real question is, can you just give us a bit of background? I mean, how old were you when you started keeping birds, Frank? When you obviously were keeping them in your 30s. Did you keep them as a boy and then?
Yeah, I had a real job at convincing my dad. I wanted an aviary in the garden, and I was threatened to knock his toilet down. He had a side loo in the garden, and I wanted that as part of my aviary. That was going to be part of my outside flight. I was trying to convince him I needed that space to fly my birds. But anyway, he said, in the end, I had to agree.
He's got 4 brothers and 1 sister as well, by the way.
In the same house.
The gardens.
That wasn't the only toilet, was it?
We had an upstairs room.
There wasn't an indoor one as well.
It was a big Victorian house, and the only other loo was 2 floors up, you see. So we had this up, but hardly anyone ever uses it. Anyway, we had to keep the toilet, but I managed to convince him I would build a bedroom, and I had an outside flight, and it was 12 by 6, the bedroom, and I was 14 at the time, and I had an outside flight about 6 feet by 6, something like that, and then the toilet was on the end. Couldn't get rid of the toilet.
Well, I suppose as long as you've retained it, I suppose you haven't knocked it down. You could have always reclaimed it. So how long did you keep the birds for? Have you kept them the whole way through, or did you have a break? Or
no, I kind of kept the birds going there until I bought my first house, which was over by Aintree Racecourse. Many will know the fantastic Grand National. I lived 5 minutes from there, and I moved the birds from there when I was 20. I bought the house when I was 24, and I moved the birds over when I was 26. Now, to begin with, I only bred the birds for pets. I didn't join any bird clubs. My dad didn't drive a car, so he couldn't take me to a show or anything like that. And I virtually just bred them for fun in the garden until I was 22 years of age. And I bought my first exhibition bird from Tom Williams in Bebington, 2 pair, and a couple of pair from Tom Lunt, who was in Liverpool itself. And they were my first exhibition birds. And 24, and I started to show the following year, just an odd show now and again. It was difficult because I was working as well, and wasn't sure of the format exactly of the show, really. When you first start and at a young age, you don't do every show every week, you just do an odd show, and you just learn slowly. That's how I did it. But when I got to novice, I was taking it more seriously. I was doing
How old was
6.
you when you were novice?
When I was novice, I was probably, well, this is before you were born, I'd be in my 20s. I'd be about 27. And those birds then, I was still working a lot with Tommy Williams days in my novice days. But the early intermediate days, I went to Terry Pilkington. And this is when the show world got started for it. I've got a little story for you if you want me to tell you it. And I have given this story. I've gone out to and give talks with Joe. But Terry Pilkington, as you know, won the club show in 82 and 86. And I went to him in 86 to buy
Frank, can I stop you for a second? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah. Oh, so you went a bit quiet for a second there. Sorry. I lost you. I hope everyone else could hear. Sorry.
No, Simon's message. Simon's message was saying there's a problem on our volume, but
yeah, you're back now. Could you start again? Would you mind? Sorry.
Yeah, just saying. Towards my late novice days, early intermediates, I thought I need to move away from the type of birds I'm breeding because we weren't winning best young birds or best in show or anything like that. But I thought I need to go to someone who's got a real stud of birds. So I decided to go to Terry Pilkington. And as I was saying, he won best in show in 82 and 86. So we made arrangements to see him just after he'd won the club show in 86. And we bought several birds, all very good birds. Paid a fair amount of money for the day, but that's the way it is. If you go to the top breeders, you've got to be prepared to pay a bit more. Anyway, got a grey-green cock, paired it to a cinnamon grey-green, which was bred from Eric Lane bird. I've got a few Eric Lanes in my novice days, and I was breeding some nice cinnamon birds from Laney. Put this pair together, and the following year, we've got a young cinnamon grey-green, and he wins best young bird at Clwyd and best opposite sex bird at Clwyd. So he takes him to Preston the following week, and Terry Pilkington was with him. And he got the same award, best young bird, best opposite sex in show. So anyway, when he gets home that night, because I didn't see Terry, he rang me and he said, that great cinnamon grey green what's that come from? I got it from you last year. That bird is going to be unbeatable. The best bird. It's better than anything I've bred this year. He said, what was the ring number of the bird? I said, 286 of 86. He said, give me 5 minutes and I'll go get my book and I need to look what this is. So he gets his book and he rings me back 5 minutes later and he said, Frank, you're not going to believe that. That's a 3rd round brother to the club show winner.
Oh, really? Ah.
It was its brother, full brother. So,
and was that just in the sales cage when you went round there, or
the sales birds?
He did ask where did he get the bird from, because he was like,
well, we all do it, don't we? I mean, happens here that people come and go, oh, and when I check what something's off, I go, oh, crikey, I shouldn't really be letting that go. But he didn't even check the ring number on it. He put several birds up for me to look at. Tell a lie, actually. When I got there on phone went and he said, Frank, there's the sale birds. Anything in there is for sale.
Give him the net.
So he gave me the net. He said, go in there, catch anything you want. And it's okay. So I got to catch this grey green with several others. Come back. Oh, it was like being in a sweet shop, catching all these. Lovely. I caught several birds. Said, oh, were they all in that flight? I said, that flight? Oh, he said, okay. They give me a price on every bird. And that got us, well, that got really footing as this particular visit to Terry. Because from then on, really, throughout our intermediate days, we were winning then best for following year. We were then winning best in show with this line of cinnamons and grey greens, which curated two of the best breeders at that time. Was and I was mixing their birds together. People thought were a little bit better than some birds he'd ever seen before, was what the comment. And really for you. At that time, the Merseyside Classic champion, and one which is just after I'd started breeding the birds off Terry. I was the president to pay for the show hall, which was whatever it was for. So I brought a bird to the show, which was a bird to this cinnamon that was virtually unbeatable, and I brought him as a raffle bird. Well, no one could breed a bird like this as a raffle bird. So I said, well, of course it breeds. It's bred babies. I can show you the babies. Well, why you bring it? I said, because I'm the president and I'm paying for the show. 1990, actually. Tom Ormerod was at the show I don't know if he was judging or he was just. He spent £100 on raffle tickets to try and win this bird. Now in 1990, that was a lot of money, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
On the day, we took £300 in raffle tickets for that one bird.
Brilliant.
The show all thing cost me £500. I only had 200 to put to it.
Excellent. Who won the bird? Can you remember?
Yeah.
Oh, he did. Oh, well done.
Yeah, he won the bird. He said, that will be the best bird in my aviary when I go home. Because Tom, his brother Alf, as we all know, he bred the super birds. Tom was more sort of into red eye and things like that. But he said, I will definitely start breeding some cinnamons now with that bird. So he was to be able to win that bird at the show. Because if somebody try and buy that bird, I wouldn't sell it for £100. I'd probably at the time would have wanted an awful lot more for it. But he thought it was value for money, spending all this money on it.
Well, it is if you win. It's not if you don't.
But when I told him when it was off, he said, I've got to win that bird. And he thought, spent £20 to begin with. Then an hour later, he got another 20 out. And he said, "No, I've spent, Frank. I've spent £100. I better win that."
Can we do the draw quickly before I spend some more?
So he did win the bid, and it was just a great thing on the day. They were great times in our late intermediate days.
Excellent. Did you enjoy? I know a lot of fanciers say that although they enjoy being champions, they actually had more of a laugh coming up through the ranks when they had it all to prove. Would you say that? From what you've said, you've really enjoyed those days when you were?
If you turn up as an intermediate and you beat all the likes of Preston, that was a big show. Gordon Allen would be there. People like this. There's many super breeders at that time were at that show. And the shows, of course, were bigger in numbers then, by the way. They had more birds at the shows in them days.
Because I know 86 and 88 were the big 2 years at the club show, weren't they? I think they was at the 5,000 and a half or 5,000 or 6,000 entry.
Remember, when you do well at one of these shows, particularly in the Northwest, if you win a best young bird or the best opposite sex, etc., they were massive awards to win in them.
It's like Daniel Norman. He's just won best opposite sex at the club show. That feeling that he's on about is the same feeling that I had in 2014. It's a real feel-good factor, and it spurs you on to want to do better and want to go again and keep at the same level type of thing.
Now that same cinnamon, the following year, he went on to win 2 Best in Show awards for us, and that was the first Best in Show awards we had at championship shows. We'd had Best in Show at local 2-star show, kind of local shows that weren't in the category of the Merseyside Championship, and the Great Northwestern was around in them days. Barry Wild, I think he looked after that one. And of course, we had John Woods around then, the famous light green man. John Woods won the club show around then. So those shows were very hard to win because we had so many. And the Hallams, as you know, Gordon and Sylvia Hallam, they were very hard to beat the best in show.
So winning at that point was a real achievement, and
yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's fair to say the Northwest is still, it's still a hotbed of budgie breeding in the country, isn't it? So I know us Southerners down here always look at you guys up there, and we know that's the place if we want to really prove ourselves is to go up there and beat you lot. Not that I beat anybody, but that's the place to win.
Yeah.
Like that.
Is that better?
Okay.
So how many breeding cages have you got, guys? I don't think I've asked you that yet. Can you just give us a description of your setup, please?
Well, we've got 3 aviaries, and the main bedroom we've got 50 breeding cages, and that's where we start our night prep and food. But then we've got a middle shed, which is the second shed. That was my when I began as a junior, we started building that. And that's where I began. I used to use 10 breeding cages in there. I was meant to be using them all, but my dad was like, "No, I want some as well." And there's 30 in there. So my 30 ended up to 10, and then and on the left hand side we've got another aviary, and we've always used 10 breeding cages in there, but this year we've upped it to 14, so total is 94.
Okay. And what is your breeding season? So it's the weekend after the club show, by the sounds of it, and then do you keep going all year, or is there a defined break? Or
to be honest with you, we do when the shows are on, and we haven't got shows this year, but when a normal show season, we would be splitting up as many pairs as we can in the middle of May to give us particularly cages for our show team, because we have a lot of show team. Yeah, we do keep a lot of different colours or variations.
We have a show team of about 60. So by come mate time, we've gone from maximum capacity of breeding down to about 70, probably even 50 to 70 breeding pairs. And we like to focus on the show team. So what happens is during the show season, I spray them every other day in the morning, 6:30, I'm in the shed, spray them. And then over night time, we have like a strategy between us. He concentrates on the show team and he does the spotting and feather problems. He's looking after me, show training them, and I go around feeding them. So it's kind of where you need the two of us basically for the setup that we've got.
Just getting back to what you said though, do we still breed when the shows are on?
Oh, yeah.
The answer is yes, because what you find is you've got to use the birds when they're ready, not when you're ready. Certain birds come old enough to breed with because of the time they were bred the year before. They will come 8 or 9 months of age when the height of the show season is on in July and August. If you've managed to keep those birds because you like them, and you need to be pairing some of those up. We can't pair all the birds up that we like because we've got to keep the breeding to a minimum. But I'd say to you, to be perfectly honest, we are still breeding with 40 pair or so when the shows are on in the summer.
Do you guys ever suffer from French molt? Because that's my scourge. That's why I always have a break, because I'd love to breed all the way through. But do you suffer with that at all? Or?
Okay, we'll have to be perfectly honest with you. We've run 501 youngsters as of last night. Yeah. We haven't beaten tonight. But well, Joe will tell you how many French molters we've had this year. How many have you had, Joe? One. We've had one French molter.
And he left the box and he left the breeding cage from the parents and he French molted in the baby cage. And we don't know why, but he's growing his flight back. So
like I'm back, yeah.
You might say,
but when you've had,
you've
had French molt, have you had a stop then? If every, well, I suppose you have had it in the past. Everyone gets it. But
this is the best season we've had for not having it. That can be down to diet, your fan system. It can, and obviously the cleanliness of your aviary. But for French molt this year, touch wood, we've been very lucky. We've kind of kept on top of everything. We have a cleaner that comes every Saturday. And obviously during lockdown he didn't come, so we were kind of cleaning everything. But years previous, we have had it no more than say 30. But probably in the last 5 years, we've noticed 4 years. First time we visited the millers, we changed our diet system, and whatever we're feeding, the French molt will grow and the feathers back.
But now we're not getting the French molt.
No, we're not getting the French molt at all. So we don't know. It's kind of fell into the bloodstream of the whole birds that the feather is that healthy that we don't suffer from it.
Okay.
Again, it's only time will tell.
I'd say I know French molt is a big issue with budgie breeders.
Yeah.
My theory is with French molt is you will get French molt from birds when they're not rested correctly. If you go and buy a couple of birds from somewhere and you don't rest, and they've been breeding with that breed, and then you pair them up, there's a very good chance you will get French molt from them. Because what happens is the eggs that are produced from these birds are low in immune system because your birds are tired. And then a low immune system lends itself to French molt. Pair your birds when they're very, very fit, they're firing, we make a note of our birds when they've finished breeding, we have a book, we put the date, return to flight, and that bird is not used for breeding again until at least 6 or 7 months later.
Yeah.
And this is the biggest reason I believe we're not getting French molt. We adopt that seriously. So this is
very strict in the rest period. But what you were going to lead to there is we put a test to the theory of French molt. Because we've got 3 aviaries, we're quite lucky in how we've created this test. We had French molt in the main aviary and not in the other 2. So we moved an egg that was full into one of the other aviaries, and it hatched, and it French malted. So it was proven that the French malt was within the egg already.
Okay.
But once French malt is airborne, it can affect other birds that are fit. So therefore, that rest period is so important, because if it does get airborne, it can affect the whole school.
Excellent. And when you have had it, have you just stopped, chats, or have you bred through it?
We stopped it.
You just stopped.
We'll stop the birds breeding if they produce a French malter.
Yeah.
But we may have pairs next to them which have only just been paired up in the next cage. You're not going to split those.
Yeah.
And those birds are out, and this is what proves it. It's the tired birds that's giving the French malters. The pairs next to them who've been properly rested and had their thorough sort of time in the flights and looked after, they produce perfectly good birds. They're not French malters. So it's proven it's tired birds that aren't looked after properly. Very important to fly your birds in flights, not have them stuck in stock cages, because your birds can only get fit if you give them flights to fly in.
Have you got external flights? Sorry, jump in there.
Lucky here. We have external flights on the main aviary, on the two main aviaries. 6 outside flights altogether.
1, 2, 3, 5.
5 outside flights, 5 indoor flights. So it's so you can't get your birds fit if you don't have flights. That's the top maximum.
Yeah. Or a lot of space. You can get your birds fit if you've got a lot of space.
If you can give your birds the luxury of outside flights, your birds will be an awful lot fitter for you. So people who visit our aviaries and see the birds in the outside flights can see the difference of how much happier the birds seem to be flying outside. The range the flights are covered, so you can land in the aviaries. But when you get that driving rain, sometimes you want to see how the birds love it. Now we also have a system,
sprinkler
system in the main aviary for the which the young birds and the adult birds breeding can get the luxury of when they're in the outside flights. On a hot day, turn them sprinkler systems on, and they love the water. So your birds must always have active bath water.
Bath water is very important.
Our birds get out and they bath nearly every day. And big bath.
And it's very important for the show season as well. Bathing, your birds will naturally bath themselves.
The water only wants to be shallow.
Yeah.
Because
don't give them big buckets. They don't swim so well, do they?
Got to be as large a thing you can give them, but shallow. And you want to see the way they'll enjoy themselves. And they will return the favour to you in the way they breed for you.
And how many... We talked about using tired birds. How many rounds do you take off your birds? Will you give them a minimum of 2 then, or how does that one work?
Well, some birds only do get 2 for show season purposes, but that's very rare. But on average, it's between 2 and 3, and sometimes they go for a 4th, but we just take the eggs away from them as they're laying them. We don't let them even. They lay it and we move it out. And then they lay the next one and we move it out. There's no incubating that they do. This is kind of falling out of their routine. And then once we do split them, we leave them in the breeding cage for 2 or 3 days. The nest box is shut off, and then we move them into a rest flight.
I mean, the perfect situation here was the club show winner last year. He had 2 rounds, 4 chicks in each of his first 2 rounds. Okay, and they were well into the baby cages. And then when it came to the 3rd round, we let the hen lay what were another 4 full eggs. But those 4 eggs got moved to different boxes around the aviary so we could rest the pair. And those 4 chicks hatched. If you're careful in the way you move eggs and keep track of them, this is the clever way to do it. Therefore, you're not asking your best birds to bring up a 3rd round. Now, as Joe said, it's impossible to do that with every pair because sometimes you don't have somewhere to put their third round eggs. And if they're full, you don't want to be throwing them away, do you? So some pairs will bring up a third round of chicks, but only if we're really happy that the quality of the chicks has been okay and the chicks are healthy. If there's any sign of a chick not being right in a second round, that will give us the sign that pair is adamant.
Yeah, and a good point of that is down feather. You'll notice round one, the down feather is like abundant. It's very flush. Round two will be less, and round three you'll see a different type of feather. It can be sometimes non-existent. That is a true sign that you need to quit with.
Is that right? But what? Because they're just is that because you think the baby hasn't formed properly in the egg, or it's not getting the nutrition through feeding, or
again, it can be from what we're talking about of the tiredness. It can be anything leading from the birds mating to incubation to then obviously being brought up. It's tiring for them because they're in that little nest cage for sometimes anywhere between 4 and 6 months. So obviously they're going to get tired. So the longer you leave them in that cage, you will notice round by round that the down feather will change. It'll be so vibrant in the first round, maybe not all of them. Then round two will be less, and then round three will be even less again, and then it's telltale signs for me that he's splitting up.
Just while we're on there, what you mentioned about French molt, but what we don't get anymore, which is kind of coincided with us not getting French molt, we don't get feather plucking. We might. Now we probably use 150 hens in a season. Most of them will be young hens, 40 or 50 adult hens. But in all of those hens, we might get 1 or 2 at the very most, which feather pluck. And even then, it's only the down feather. We haven't had a hen in years pluck the main flight feathers or anything like that. Yeah, that's something that we seem to have been able to get away from. Yeah. Now, I can remember 5, 6 years ago, every other breast box we would open, chicks were being feather plucked.
And the only change that we made was the diet of that we took from the millers when we visited in 2018.
Yeah.
And then was that their supplements, Joe? When you say their diet, was that the seed, or was that the
a lot of NAF products?
Yeah.
NAF, the horse products. Yeah. But we also took on Kevin Bowe's stuff, which we feed finger draws. Yeah. Well, one in the finger draw, I think that's called Breed Plus Pro. Then 2 powders, which is feather condition, and the other one is, what's the pink one called?
One's for feather and one's for sort of general fertility.
Yeah, fertility.
Vitality.
And whatever we've put in the diet has completely eliminated feather plucking. And we can't say the NAF products or the Kevin Ball products, but we've mixed them both together and it's completely eliminated it. So
we can summarise by saying that nutrition has knocked that on the head, because I know some people say, "Oh, that's just boredom," but it doesn't sound that way with your birds. It's just they're just not right, are they? It's
feather plucking is what they're sourcing, trying to source something that they require. Like a human, if you are desperate for a drink, you're gonna go to the tap.
Yeah.
Or the pub. Do you know what I mean? It's the same. They will find things. You're gonna go.
One of the NAF products called Magic is an actual probiotic. Okay, and then there's another. I think that is a very important one, because it's given us it's given us a probiotic in the soft food, which I don't give when the birds are breeding in the water fountain. You understand me? So they're getting probiotic, which I think helps. For another one that we use is called O-Stress, and that is it has a calming effect on horses.
That's another NAF product, is it?
Another NAF product. And that when you read, it says to calm your horse when breeding, etc. It says on the side.
Travel.
When it's traveling, and it keeps it calm from getting excited. Now, I'm wondering if that's having an effect on the hens when they're breeding. It's all theory, but we're not getting feather pluckers, I don't believe that's to do with a French molt. I've already given my answer on French molt, but I think these two products could be the two products that's helping us not get feather plucking. Okay, that's my theory at the moment.
I know with the Miller range, because I followed the same. I picked up on that after conversations with Andrew Luke. Him and his dad were doing the same, and I know they're quite dear buying all those NAF products. I've got a green wheelie bin full of them all, so there's a lot that goes into my soft food too. But I must admit, I've found that my birds have been so much better on all those products. Although there's a lot you got to buy. But
are you using the Magic and the O-Stress product yourself?
I haven't got the old stress one. I'm using the the Hedgerow Herbs, but I've got the Magic and the Clop, etc., and all the other ones, the Biotin. So the only thing is they're expensive to buy, but once you've got the tubs of them, it'll last forever.
Because soft food, you don't feed it every day. It's two. We feed our birds 2, maximum 3 times a week with the soft food. Because obviously, if you think we've got big flights and 94 breeding cages, you think you're going to go through quite a lot, quite fast. But over a period of time, if you're not rush feeding them every day with the same stuff, you don't need to do that. It's 2-3 times a week tops.
Can I ask you then, because you're not using the O-Stress one. You're not using the O-Stress product, are you? By the sound of it.
No.
You use the Kevin Bohr products.
I'm not. No, I've tried them, but no, only because I've got so many. I thought, well, I don't really want to add anything else in.
No, I just want to ask you: are you getting feather plucking?
No.
Oh, right. Okay.
No. I must admit, this year I've probably bred 150, 160 across a 12-month period, probably that many birds, and I've had no feather plucking this year.
Well,
to be honest.
Mine is only a theory with what's stopped the feather pluck. All of a sudden, the feather plucking stopped 2 or 3 seasons ago. 4 or 5 seasons ago, as I say, we had feather plucking in every other nest box that was driving, moving chicks around to a hen that didn't feather pluck. And she'd had 5 and 6 babies in the box because you couldn't leave any babies with certain hens. And now that problem has been resolved. I'd love to know, though, which of the products is making the difference.
Just keep feeding it. Don't question it. Just keep feeding the stuff.
But I think one particular product, I think, is enabling, eliminating the feather plucking. But I'm not sure which one it is.
But you're feeding it anyway, so that's the good thing.
Carry on. That's how you just got to go with it because it's working. So.
Absolutely. With your cages, guys, have you got wooden cages and nest boxes, or plastic, or Trespa?
Wooden cages.
Wooden nest boxes.
Wooden
nest boxes.
Yes.
If everyone's any bin, everyone always says, "Wow, they're the biggest nest boxes you've ever seen." So
our nest boxes are 12 inches from top to bottom.
Okay. I've heard this before. So nothing gets out of your nest box until it's properly fully grown.
We don't want the babies on the floor because you know what can happen to them. And
absolutely,
years ago, I said to Joe, "I've had enough of this." Spoke to a friend of mine who does a lot of little jobs for me joinery-wise, and I got 20 or 30 to begin with, and they were so successful. I think we've now got about 90 of them. The babies don't get out of the box onto the floor. And we move the babies from the nest box into the stock cages. We wean the birds in the nest boxes with soaked millet sprays. So they're getting a little bit of water and soaked millet spray in the nest box.
Red millet sprays, yes, I imagine.
Well, red, I couldn't afford red, I have to say, years ago when Joe was little. But now I don't have a mortgage now, etc. And I can afford the red ones. But I couldn't afford the red ones.
It's your fault, Joe. His birds have suffered all these years. So Joe, Dad's explained how he got into the birds. It'd be remiss of me if I didn't ask you. So obviously mum and dad are doing brilliantly with the birds.
Yeah.
You've obviously got the bug. What age did you get into the birds then? How did that work with you?
Well, it kind of started late in school. It started with the feeding, and we, at the back then we had a crazy feeding regime by feeding them scrambled egg. But I used to make it that way, but I didn't really have an interest for the first 4 years. I used to just do it to help out, and then say late teens, probably. What was that? 2004 was my first ring number. When I first got my ring, so that's a long time ago now. But 16 years ago, nearly. So it was probably when I was about 13 or 14. I got my first ring, but my dad was still kind of pushing me towards it. Like, he was always asking me questions and getting my opinions and stuff like that. So yeah, I'd say anywhere between 14 and 16, I had a bit of a role in it. Where it become more of an interest, and I paid more attention to sex linkage and picking the pairs, and then I always enjoyed the show. I never used to have playing, so yeah, it was early teens,
When Joe was
late teens, sorry.
back to Joe's sort of junior days, even I would turn up at a I would say to the show manager, Joe would like to stay a steward. So the show manager would put him with a seat. He would stay with the senior steward all day, and he was probably only about then.
Yeah,
and he let the show all day. And that would be on a weekly basis on a Sunday. The show. That was what he wanted. He wanted to be at the show all day on the Sunday. No matter which show. It was always a championship show. But he learns a lot. You see, in shows. I would say that to anyone. As many shows as you can, and learn about the birds. Learn about what it is, etc. Maybe before you go and buy the wrong kind of bird, get your own. Because I would say to you, I would put a set of birds in the early days, say which one do you like the best. Wouldn't pick the one I would, but now he would pick the same bird as me for many years. But you learn by looking and being at the shows. Where a better place to be. The colours, all the different birds. You can ask questions about them, and then you know what variety of bird. So people should try and visit the shows before they buy any birds.
Well, I think there's a perception as well when you go to a show that you can't, particularly when you're stewarding, that you can't ask questions. But that's not in my experience. I think providing you're not, you're tapping the judge on the shoulder at the crucial minute where he's finishing the CC lineup. But most of the rest of the time, everyone, particularly at not the club show, but all the other shows, most judges are really, and senior stewards are very keen to impart wisdom, aren't they? They love talking about birds. So it's not that daunting a kind of experience, really, is it?
No. I don't know why. I just really enjoyed being at the shows, helping out, and seeing the competition. I don't know if that was the feeling I had. It's quite a while ago, but as you said, I started really young, loving the shows, but then the interest of that side of the game was like later on in me, later teens, and then it kind of snowballed from there, really.
I would say to any young person listening tonight, if you start when you're young, the benefits it will give you in 10, 20 years' time, you will then become you can be one of the top breeders because you have got that 10 or 20 years behind you.
Well, I suppose if you start young, you've got all the experience. By the time you get to sort of 30, you've made all your mistakes, haven't you? And you've then got a massive run at as I say, just being good at the birds. Because I always think that's half the battle with the budgies is learning from your mistakes, isn't it? And you've kind of, would you agree, you've got to kind of live through, you've got to have French molt, you've got to have a bit of red mite and feather plucking and, egg adding. You've got to walk in those shoes, haven't you?
Yeah, 100%.
People should really just try and work with lesser birds to begin with. Just local breeders, just go to your local champion and buy the worst of his birds will be worth breeding with. Learn about the birds, learn how, as you've just said, about them laying their eggs, what size nest box to use, all those things is what you consider buying. And you just go to your local champion breeder and he will give you all that advice. Then you visit the shows, as many as you can, and if you like the birds from certain breeders at the shows, then a few years down the track, maybe you're in a position to go and buy some of the better birds, but don't jump into it. Don't spend all kinds of money on really good birds when you don't know how to breed them. You've got to walk before you can build. That's the same for anything, isn't it? Learn with the lesser birds. That's what I did. I had a great experience in my mum and dad's back garden from when I was 14 till I was 20, early 20s, just working with the lesser birds. I bought my first birds in Fylde Foreign Bird Farm in Blackpool. And they delivered them to you. If you phone them up, they sent them by courier service. Or you could go and pick them up at a £5 each or something like that. So
fantastic.
That's how I started. So it was, I never spent great big money on birds. I just bred them for pets, sold them to the pet shop. But I learned how to breed budgies. We learned about all the little daft things they do, that they don't sit the eggs properly. You've got to move eggs around. You've got to mark the eggs.
Yeah.
You have a little card on each box, which we still do now.
Because people going to buy, getting started even in year like 3, 4, and 5 into the hobby, if they go straight to the big guns and buy your more expensive birds and they don't prove themselves or do the job, that becomes disheartening, and you can easily jump out of the hobby. But if you're starting with as my dad said, you learn with the lesser birds and how everything operates. And if a bird does sadly not work or pass away or not, you haven't spent all that money.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so you work with the lesser birds to begin with.
So, Joe, just to finish what I asked you before, so you've gone into the junior ranks. I assume you did pretty well there, because I think the first time I came, I realised who you were and saw you was that year you had that sky blue in the intermediate section at the club show, and I thought, sorry, go on.
I done very well in every section I went in, but obviously I was using birds out that my dad sell flight, so I weren't paying money, so I know I was lucky in that sense of the word, but it was still a learning curve for me, and I'm at champion level now, but it's through the my mum and dad type of thing. So, but I still learned a lot from them junior and beginner years of how it all operates. But again, people will get lucky. You do strike a lot of luck. You need it. Everyone needs luck.
For most juniors, it is that their mother and father, one of them is a budgie breeder, and they get into it as a junior, don't they, through their mum and dad?
Yeah.
And show as a junior in the same household, and like Carol and I showed as champion, while Joe was showing in it through his sections, and if that could be done.
But it's about supporting the younger generation as well. Everyone needs to be supporting them, and it doesn't matter where they get the birds from or how they get them. Anyone, for that instance, don't have to be just a kid. It can be Tom, who's 50 years of age. If he's just starting, you want to help him out, and you give him the best aid. You try and support them as much as you can. If they do get good in short periods of time, you keep them back. You don't fall away from them and start ignoring them. it's a game we need to all support each other in every way we possibly can. So yeah.
And again, I think we perhaps covered this when we did the club show interviews. You got to intermediate, you'd gone through that, and at that point, the next logical step was to join the partnership. Is that right? Just for those who don't know the full story.
In the same household, you can't have two ring members coming out of the same household. So
he can't show as a champion in our household on his own.
Yeah,
is the rule.
Okay.
He'll be able to do that when he has his own house one day, but he just works within the partnership, so it's a trio.
Yeah.
Well, it's difficult because you guys obviously working as well. I know that's my real issue with the birds is, and in fact, being locked down, I've been able to work at home 2 or 3 days a week. So every half an hour, I'm off and have a cup of coffee. I zip in the bird room. So the birds have never been so well cared for. But obviously, when you've got a lot of birds and you're working, I suppose you do need to work as a team, don't you?
Oh,
We do.
100%. 100%. You will have
What?
You have more benefit than a lot of other breeders because there's two people who are dedicated doing a big job. Whereas sometimes you're not always going to be firing. You'll probably, if you're doing it on your own yourself, you'll have your days where you feel off or your week that you feel off. You could even have your month feeling off and you don't really pay attention to it. You're just doing seed and water. But because we've got each other's back, and if I'm not there, he's doing the job, or if he's not there, I'm doing the job. So we do have benefit. You'll see other more successful breeders, they're more likely to be successful because they're a partnership. You can, like people who are doing it on their own, they're going to struggle by fact if they don't have support from family members, etc.
And for those people where they are on their own, is it important, would you say, not to stretch yourself by thinking, oh, I'm here, I'll get 40 cages. It's better that way to have less cages but do it better with fewer pairs. Would you say that?
That depends on the person, because if you're dedicated and you are willing to put them hours in, then you can judge your like we after 94. About a month ago during lockdown, I said to me that I kind of want to slow down a little bit now because golf season's coming in. We're normally slowing down by now.
Because it goes for me, isn't it?
And plus,
to do a bit of golf
so we kind of need to slow down and enjoy what other focus totally on the budgies, which has been what we've been doing. You do need life outside of budgies, but it's going back to your question. If a single person wants 40 breeding cages, that's totally down to the person's dedication in the hobby. If they want to be at a full time, and 40 cages are for them, but if they're the type of person who get motivated for 2 months of the year and then go, oh, I wish I never done that, then it's not for you. You need to 20.
What I'd say about our with breeding budgies, there is something going on all year round, isn't there? Now you've got, it's winter time in golf. It's a terrible time. It is for us because that's when we're breeding on. October through to April is when you're going to breed the most of them. Well, that's when we breed them anyway. And then the times when everyone else is stuck in that Coronation Street, we are out there. And when the summer comes, we have our shows, albeit we have a holiday in, a couple of holidays in the season. One before, we have a holiday. And when the club show is over, a week or so away then. We all 2 weeks away out of the country. And we are very dedicated. We'll have our holidays, other things as well. So it's, the fact that you see us do it as well as we are, we're not the things that we like to do.
Yeah.
But I'd say the hobby, there's something going on in that bird show. there's a show going on, you've got to get your birds ready, and it keeps you thoroughly involved.
Well, you're right. That is the best bit about the hobby, because there is something happening all the time, isn't there? Breeding or not. So yeah, it's the bit I enjoy about it.
I'm probably, my mates call me two jobs Franny. That's my nickname. I've always had two jobs. When I was a lad, I had a paper round 7 days a week, and on a Saturday morning, night. On a Saturday, I had 3 people rounds. I had the football echo, and then I had a Sunday morning. So on a Saturday, I had a Saturday job. I worked in a fruit shop on Saturday, and I had my birds to look after. So I've always been busy. I'm a busy person. I have my own business. I started my own business when I was 28, and I employ 10 people now, is it? So I'm that type of person. I like to be busy. I'm not one to sit and watch Coronation or any of these things. For me, this is the way I feel. I'm not blaming anyone for what they do, those things. But for me, if I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, what I be doing? I think something I should be doing. That's the way I am. That's the way.
Yeah, well, it sounds, for that reason, the hobby's a good fit for you. I think that's right. The hobby, it's got to suit your personality as well, isn't it? Because it is just 365 days a year. And
I like to be busy. I don't like to be sitting on my backside. I should be 10 stone nothing, but because I'm never off my feet. But it's just as you get older, you do put a little bit of weight on. But today I've been in the park with the dog for an hour, and I went jogging for 40 minutes.
Very good.
My weight never changes. No matter what I do, I never change. I'm always the same weight, no matter what I do or it's just the way I am, and that's what happens as you get older. Now, at Joe's age, believe it or not, I look just like Joe. I've got photographs, and I look just like Joe at 30 years of age. I'm exactly the same
just without
as Joe.
there.
So, what you expect as you get older.
Just very quickly, soaked seeds, yes or no? Do you go for soaked seeds or?
Soaked seed is the main basis of our soft food. Everything goes in germinated soaked seed. It's soaked overnight, drained off the next morning, and then when we come home, we drain it actually over the period of 24 hours, 48 hours, really, don't we? Yeah. Because you can't feed it when it's wet. It's got to be properly drained and left to sprout. It's hard to get it to sprout in the winter months, but right now it's sprouting very nicely. It doesn't take long to drain off and start to sprout. 24 hours or so.
Because the nutritional value of soaked seeds is massive, isn't it? I'm just discovering this myself this year, and it seems to be, just when you read up on it, I wish I'd done it years ago. I've been feeding mine soaked wheat. Do you use like a multi-seed mix? What?
On top of the germinated seed, when it's dried off, isn't it, and left to sprout?
Yeah.
We add dry groats or clipped oats.
Okay.
Dry. We want the soft food to be dry, because when you put it in, if it's dry, it won't mold or fester. If you're feeding something that's wet or got moisture in it, it will mold and go off. Now,
so
left in for a couple of. We don't change the soft food every day. We'll leave it in until the next time we're doing it. And the tray, when we remove our tray with the soft food in, it's like a powder. What they've left is basically a dry, rusky powder. There's hardly anything left in the tray. You see, so if you were feeding something that's wet, it would start to smell, wouldn't it?
It goes a bit manky, yeah.
So you've got to be careful. So our soft food, the time we feed them, is dry.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Okay.
Just put my lights on.
Yeah.
Can you see me better now? There we go. That's better.
No, as well as we put the growth on, and we use an oil. We put on a naff oil. Omega oil is what we use at the moment on top of the groats.
Oh, so which oil is that? Because that's one of my questions. Because I know someone recommended that they use vegetable oil. That was something they popped on. So yours is
Omega oil, but it's a NAF product.
It's an NAF product again, a horse product.
Oh, okay. And it's just called Omega oil, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What we're using, I don't. You could try different oils, but it's just the one that we started to use, and it's fine. It's been working well.
Again, it was the Millers. The Millers put us onto it.
Okay. Well, it sounds like they've changed their. Have they updated their website? I need to go and see them. They've obviously made some tweaks that I'm a bit behind.
Well, we use. Well, I don't think this is something that the Millers use, but we use a powder called Comed, and that's a Belgian product. It's a pigeon product, and it was developed to stop cysts on the wings and the tails. Many years ago, American scientists were put to task by pigeon flyers in the States, and they paid them an awful lot of money, these scientists' money, to develop this product, and it's used worldwide by pigeon men. Now, I was put onto this product close on 20 years ago by Leo Endres, who lives in Germany, who's friends with John Ellis. He said a lot of the German breeders are using this now, and you should. Now, in them days, I did see an awful lot of birds were developing these cysts on the wings and the tails. After you lose a main feather, a cyst would develop rather than regrow the tail or the long flights, you see. So the longest of their flights would disappear, and you get a little cyst instead. And some of them would end up like a balloon. Well, we hardly ever see them now because of this product, and it's known as Comed.
Okay, fantastic.
You can go on the website comed.com, and it'll come up with the people who sell it, and it's available to buy in Britain.
Because that's, the feather cysts are, that's obviously something that's come with the heavier and thicker feather that we've engineered onto the birds.
It's basically, it's an enzyme. Once you've fed it to your birds and it gets into the bloodstream, it stays as an enzyme in the bloodstream. So the idea is when a main feather is lost, the enzyme is in the bloodstream and goes to the follicle of the feather to protect the regrowth of the new feather. And that's so if people come to us all the time and go, how come you've got birds 5 and 6 years old with all their flights until with 2 tails? You said, because you don't go anywhere and see that. Most people's birds, well, they're not even there after 3 years. Most the birds have gone after they've either sold them or they've died. But I think this product is helping our birds to live longer, because when your birds got those cysts on the tail and on the wings, it caused their lifespan. They wouldn't live more than 6 months later. It would kill them. It'd start to bleed and things like this.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. We still get the odd.
Yeah, we still get a few.
It's not
but then we breed an awful lot more birds now than we do that.
Yeah, but what we were going back to with buying other people's birds is we were breeding good birds, but the best birds were always tailless wonders, and we were like, well, we can never show them type of thing. So we were winning CCs with the style show birds, but our better birds were not fully feathered. So we couldn't really compete the top that we wanted to. We started this Comed product, bearing in mind it did take a lot, like it was a good 13 years before we actually started seeing results of the better birds holding the feather. So you can't be like expecting instant success with it in a year, or the day you feed it, it's not going to happen.
It stays. If you use it regularly, we use it each time we do the soft food.
Yeah.
So it's in our soft food. All our birds get the soft food, whether they're in flights, baby cages, stock cages, whatever you want to call them. Everything breeding gets it every night. So they're getting this Comed product every 2 or 3 days in their soft food. Yes, please. Just get me a ginger ale. Sorry, John.
Can I have a ginger ale as well, please?
It's a non-alcohol thing, but it's very refreshing.
Very nice. Sounds lovely. Okay, so we've done. So this question popped up this week. Sorry.
Let me just finish there then.
Yeah, of course.
Put the powder in on top of the groats. Okay. Use the omega oil. Okay. And then we mix it up, and then we add the Orlux soft food, dry. Again, it must be dry, not the wet one. We do an alternative wet, what they call moist. Well, for me,
Yeah.
I want dry. So I order dry Orlux soft food every time. And then we add, on top of that, we then add these NAF products. And the website lists all the ones that we use without me going through them all. I've mentioned a few of them while I've been talking tonight, but I won't go through them all with you. And then we add tins. We buy tins of sweet corn and drain them off, and that goes on the top. If I've got time, I will grate up broccoli in particular. I like, because it's dry. Again, it's dry. I'm not a user of carrot because it's wet. It's very, I think it carries too much moisture for me. So I'm fussy. So broccoli is my favorite one because it is dry. I do use beetroot actually, but and there is but I think the beetroot is quite sweet, and they absolutely love it. But I don't put a lot. We buy it on the stalk, which is from growth. You know, where it's grown from a farmer. You can buy that in most good supermarkets, and that's our soft food. Okay, so that gets the soft food.
Yeah, that's like the that's the standard question. But it is good. It's interesting to know, because I mean, mine is based on carrot, and I've always fed that with some broccoli, and I've added peas in. But I've started going down the beetroot route as well now, because the birds love it. There's something in that they just go potty for. Just chuck just a whole one in, and they'll just devour it. It's amazing.
I sometimes just chop them up and throw them in the outside flights, because if you throw them in the inside flights, they make a mess of everything. It's on the perches and on your. Next thing is your inside flights have turned red with it. But if I put it on the outside flights, I can swill it down quite easily. All our flights are flights are all drained. I can just throw buckets of water off it, and it'll drain off.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
so sorry, go on.
No, so yeah, that's down to soft food again. So, is there another subject you want to move on to?
Yeah. Just with this one again. This popped up in a Q&A that we kind of had on the forum this week, and I've been chatting to other people about. Would you persevere? Because obviously we've said birds, from what I've seen. Well, I suppose I haven't had the pleasure of coming to your setup, and you're not really going to show any flecked birds. But if you've got flecked birds, would you use them?
Yeah, well, particularly if they're grey.
Yeah.
Grey, I will use to albino. Keep red eye.
Yeah.
So that
not split blue.
And it doesn't matter. I can work flecked grey. Yeah. Joe rightly points out there, they need to be double factor grey if possible, but not always. So we'll use the flecked birds into red eye, because if you use flecked birds if you've got a super, you don't get to be honest with you, we don't seem to get much flecking on a normal grey bird, say, for instance. Most of ours are squeaky clean. It's just the way we've bred them over many years.
But that's the point. Do you try and, if you don't use them to red eyes, do you manage them out? That was the question.
It depends on whether they're absolute super birds or not. If they're just,
but they've got to be stonkers.
We would want them to
stonkers
go.
only.
Stonkers only. Yeah. But opaline hens, particularly flecked, are invaluable for me for the red eye. We use opaline grey hens all the time to albino cocks, and they improve albino no end.
Okay. What about tailless birds, Frank? What about tailless birds? Would you?
Again,
we use them.
If they're absolute stonkers, wonderful birds in every way except they've lost their tail at an early age.
Because it is a hereditary fault, isn't it? That seems to spread quite.
Balance that up is you find a yellow feathered hen for these birds.
Double-tailed feathered yellow hen.
In general, birds losing their tails are usually a buff or a double buff cock. I think you'd agree. They're basically carrying too much feather for their own good. And the makeup of the bird can't seem to carry the tail feather. But again, I would point out to you, we don't have a lot of tailless birds. Again, and I think it's down to the co-med product that we use.
Okay.
We've got a lot of let me just tell you, we've got a buff spangle cock, and he is 137 of 15. We've had babies off him again this year. He was best in show at Preston Championship show last year. Okay. He is a buff spangle cock, and he's still got all his flights and 2 tails. And again, he is now 5 years of age. So there's, again, we're proving all the time that the way our feeding regime, if people look at it seriously, is working. We don't have a lot of tailless birds. But if there's a real stonking bird with no tail, cock or hen, you pair it to a yellow feathered bird to balance the feather. And I think you'll find you have very few tailless birds off the pair if you do it that way.
If you do it, would you use the cock and then dispose of him, and obviously then work with the offspring?
No, if the cock is give me the sort of birds I'm looking for, I'll probably keep him till the day he drops.
You keep going. Fair enough.
Better birds the following year, couldn't he? Give them the chance.
So, this is always the contentious one, and I'm not going to use the long flight word because it's extreme long flight European bird. Do you use those? I mean, do you use those type of birds? Are you looking all the time for different feathers, and it doesn't matter where they come from?
We have never knowingly brought in a long-tailed bird. Okay, that's we're aware of. But we have had a few long-tailed birds turn up in our breeding.
Just tail, though, just the tail.
Not flights, just the tails touching the cage, the showcase floor. And we've shown them, and as yet they've never ever been knocked. Because I think if you've got long flight, the long flights will cross over each other.
Yeah.
It's an ugly looking bird. But I think at the moment, people do get away with the long tail if it's not obstructing the natural look of the bird.
Because that's, I think myself on my travels, this is my view of it, is that it is an extreme budgie that we're seeing, and it has a long tail because it's got long feathers. So I think it's not really a long flight, although I have seen a couple here and there, but it's more that long tailedness. Is that something that scares you, or are you worried that it's going to be a problem for your studs and you try and avoid it? Or
we've spoke about this recently, in all honesty, because there's some birds, only maybe 2 or 3, that have gone, they catch your eye differently than what they do with normal budgie. And I've gone, well, I don't want that spreading out into the aviary, just in case it does become like a through the stud. You don't want it to get out there like French molt type of thing. But what we're doing with the budgies to always ever improve them, we're trying to grow the size of the budgie, aren't we? That's exactly. So what you've just said there, we're trying to breed bigger budgies, which therefore will breed bigger feather.
It could be something to do with the evolvement of the next generation of budgies. We don't know.
Yeah,
I know that some studs out there have got them. Well, they've got them quite a lot through their stud, and they've probably brought a few birds in from somebody who had these. And of course, next thing is it escalates, doesn't it? If the birds are bred for you, then you've got them all over the place.
Because my question to you guys is that, for me, as a last year novice, I can buy from. There's lots of people with better birds than me, so I'm kind of there's an availability of better birds than my stock for me to bring in. But I suppose when you're at your level, you're right at the forefront of it. You're looking to get an edge and improve, because all the other top breeders, your other competitors, will be doing the same. How do you do that? What are you looking for? You're happy to look anywhere for different types of birds with more down or a wider feather, a longer feather. That was really my question.
Well, we like the type of bird we breed. It's very much an intermediate feathered bird that we concentrate our breeding with. We do have a few buff feathered birds,
but they pop out.
They pop out, and where we get them, as I say, my opinion is to pair them back to yellow feathered birds.
Mm.
If we get these long-tailed birds, again, I think you should pair them to yellow feather, because I think basically it's an evolvement of too much feather
Of our budgie.
of the modern budgie. The modern budgie is finding itself how it looks. We don't want the tail to be longer than it is now.
Mm.
For instance, our grey at the club show, he is a perfect kind of show bird. His tail is the right length. But we'll get one or two other birds, not from that particular line of birds, but we've had a few red eyes, say. Now some of the red eyes we brought in came from Ireland some years ago. And I think the breeder I was buying them from was getting his bird from a breeder in Belgium. And this is where the longer tail came on the red eyes.
Mm.
But they haven't produced long flight, only some have been long tail. So what we've done with them, we've paired the Lutinos off to, you were saying about fleck birds before, absolutely perfect. If I breed a really flecked opaline dark green hen, those lutes are perfect for those, and that's how we balance it up. So the lutes we won both CCs at last year's club show. Neither of those luties had a long tail. They were perfect in their shape, etc.
Mm.
So that we're counteracting it, but I don't like to see it. I think the evolvement of the bird, I don't think we can help these things happen, because as Joe pointed out, we're looking for a bird with a wider head and a slightly longer body. Well, along with that slightly longer body will come a slightly longer tail, unfortunately.
Absolutely, yeah, you can't get away from that. I know I've seen some pictures of like the new Daniel Lutoff birds where he seems to, well, like us all, we want to stick a massive, great big head on the bird and a nice, sleek, carrot-shaped, very stylish body. But it's, and like you guys have done, but it's I suppose you're just looking for that small improvement every time, and it must be hard going out trying to find something that will improve when you've got so many. Your birds are so good already.
Well, this is another good point. Strategically, you go into what can improve your birds. Yeah, we've won the club show 2 years running with the same bird, but we're still looking for improvements, and that's what we've been to the millers twice in 2 years. Their bloodline's starting to run into effect, like quite dramatically in our area, and you can see the difference. But their budgie is like our budgie, so that improvement that they're making, it isn't leading towards long tail. It's an actually more beautiful budgie, but in bigger quantity. But with how other people breed them, like if you go into Europe, I've heard it's more frequent there of this long tail. We don't know who we're buying the birds off. So say if yourself, you go buy off such and such a person, you don't know where, if you don't ask the right questions of where his bloodline's from, then in generations to come, you could pick up this long tail or this long flight without even knowing. But as my dad said, and what you've said, we're heading in the direction of trying to improve the bird. So what do you expect if the bird grows a longer tail or a longer flight? There's gonna, futuristically down the line, people are gonna, well, the committee are probably gonna have to accept this new breed coming in. It's just, we're trying to improve, so that's what's going to happen.
Okay, so
I do believe that what Joe's pointed out there is relative. I think that the tail being slightly longer, we might have to live with that in the generations to come for the exhibition budget. But if you're getting birds with crossing flights, that spoils the balance of the look of the carrot shape. So you can't accept. I'm sorry, but you can't accept long flight.
Yeah.
You can tail, okay. You can't see it's in the bottom of the cage. If birds are going to have a slightly longer tail than they should, I don't think we can start criticising every other bird in the show, or we might have no birds in the show eventually. We haven't got that done now, but I know some people, some judges are criticising for the longer tail.
Which is fair enough, because
and rightly so, maybe.
They're ruling.
But what has definitely got to be known is long flight. You cannot have long flight because
the birds, if you start looking
changes
like a cockatiel, their tail's longer than the body, and you don't really want to go into that. But you don't know if that's going to happen 10 years down the line. Who knew our birds right now would get 1.5 inch wide head 20 years ago? You wouldn't think it, but it happened.
Well, even looking back 6 or 7 years, you can see the evolvement of the budgie, can't you? It's incredible, isn't it? It's so fast paced, and you think it can't move on any quicker, and then it does.
As the Millers said, and rightly so, their Violet Hen who won some years ago would be lucky to win the CC now. That's how budgies have changed in what was that, 7 years? I mean, so where are we going to be in another 7 years from now?
I know. The mind boggles.
We're trying to maintain this balance. But what I say to people is, if you look at the exhibition budgerigar, the ideal picture of the exhibition, he is not a buffed budgerigar. He's an intermediate feathered budgerigar with a fantastic cap. Perfect budgie.
And that is...
So by breeding double buff birds together, you won't breed the perfect show bird. You'll just breed more ugly buff birds. So you've got to maintain yellow feather. Those yellow feather hens that people always want to get shut of, they're so valuable back to some of these better feathered birds, which we describe as buff. They're invaluable to the breeder. And so many people and big champions over the years brought out by this, because they let all their lesser hens go, they then find these really good looking hens don't breed, and they end up with nothing. But I know that several have had to go out of the hobby because they just simply could not get their birds to breed anymore. Probably from inbreeding as well, too much inbreeding. But not maintaining the right type of hen. It's important to maintain, in your early days, maintain every hen that you breed, no matter how bad it looks, because that could be the hen that sees you through with your best cocks.
And we know hens like to mess around, don't we? I'm sure even with you guys, you got 94 pairs. I mean, you pair 94 pairs up. How many actually breed in that first round without having to be swapped?
We had a slow start, and I'd say within the first 2 months, we chucked out over 30 hens.
One of them in the box, or they only laid one egg.
Yeah.
But of course, they were the best visual hens, weren't they?
Yeah. But
of course they were.
They can be sometimes too early in their.
You maybe need to let them mature a little bit more. Perhaps that's a mistake that everyone makes. But you can't wait to get the super hens going.
Yeah.
If you manage to breed them, this is the thing.
We've sold on them super hens that haven't worked for us this year, and they've had the answer to the people. Do you know what I mean?
Well, you hear that, don't you? That birds move on and they seem to flourish in other bird rooms. It's bizarre, isn't it?
Good point, and that's
just at that particular age when we're trying them. I don't think they've matured correctly, and they go somewhere else, as Joe says, and do marvellous for them.
Yeah.
But it's just, that's the look of the draw.
That's the look of it. Yeah.
That's it.
Well, we have so many bird hens.
Yeah.
With Dead in Shell, guys, do you do anything? Because obviously the weather, I think we've had our summer, and I think we're into autumn now, aren't we? Even though it's the middle of June, I'm very confused, puzzled by the weather, and I know the birds are. How do you avoid Dead in Shell, particularly in very humid weather, dry weather? Do you?
I don't think we can answer that. I don't think we've got an answer for that, because we suffer from it.
We get shell.
Like we were getting. I felt, I don't know if it's the anticipation of wanting to do so well in round one. You notice there's more dead in shell. But round one, I felt we had quite a slow start, and my dad will agree. But we had a lot of full eggs, but a lot of dead in shell, and we didn't not understand why. But as you say, it can be down to weather, it can be down to the temperature in your bird room, it can be down to fan system, and it's actually kind of, if people know the answer, I'd love them to private message me and say, boom, there you go. But I don't think there's a logical or no scientific answer to that without really testing it.
You can get
over a
dead in shell
period of time.
if your hens aren't sitting eggs properly. You get dead in shell. If they're coming off them in the middle of the night, that could cause dead in shell.
That's
The
hens.
cock going in wanting to mate with the hen in the box will cause the eggs to. He's chasing around in the box because he's fed up sitting in the cage. So there's lots of reasons which can cause dead in shell. But the important thing is your eggs are fertile in the first place. You're not going to get dead in shell if your eggs are all clear.
So yeah, absolutely. But you just think it's part and parcel of it then, that everyone gets dead in shell, and it's just
100%.
Okay, you have to move on to the next round, and usually you find the next round will be successful, because a lot of pairs, when you're getting dead in shell, sometimes they're two maiden birds,
They
cock
don't know,
and hen.
they don't know how to get on with the job.
The silly mistakes happen, and the temperature in our room you've got to have a warm bedroom, that's for sure. If you've got a cold bedroom, you definitely have dead in shell. Your bedroom needs to be maintained at around 60 degrees Fahrenheit for me in the winter months, because if you're walking in there and you feel cold, that means your birds are cold, and your birds won't if they're in a cold environment. We're trying to breed them in what they think is the spring months by putting heaters on. But if you're not giving them enough heat, then the birds will do all these daft things, and you'll get more dead in shell by not giving them some heat in the bedroom. Winter breeders in the winter, and they haven't even got any heat on whatsoever. And I've been with my wife now, and she can't wait to get out of there because she's diddling. Honestly.
But again,
it seems to be working for these people.
Yeah.
They've got all kinds of coats and all kinds on, but they won't put heating on. And maybe that's down to they haven't got the money to put the heating on. I don't know. But for me, that's totally uncomfortable environment. And you can't enjoy being in your bedroom if it's very, very cold for you. And
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And I suppose you're trying to create the summer for these birds, aren't you, all year round? And I mean, I know fanciers who say they do very well when their bedroom's cold and they're breeding in the winter. But apart from the enjoyment element, my birds breed terribly when it's cold.
Well,
they don't like it.
Even as I must admit, my mum and dad, when I was a lad, wouldn't allow me to put heating on in the bedroom, but I didn't breed the birds through the winter then. I was just a hobbyist. I'd pair the birds up in the spring when the weather was nice, and I'd probably stop breeding when it came to September. I was only breeding in the summer months, that's fine. But you can't breed in the depth of our winter months successfully with no heat on, or very little heat.
Because if them hens decide to come off the eggs are going to freeze within a short space of time than they would in the summer. You understand?
Yeah. Well,
so why are we breeding it? Why are we breeding in the winter then and showing in the summer? Do we change that?
I know, because to get the birds into show season condition, you need them to be wet. You need to wet their feathers and let them dry naturally. Where in the winter, that would freeze them to death.
You can't be spraying birds for shows.
The way we do it, we can. You've just proven. You just said it. People are proven champion breeders that we know and everyone else knows. They breed through the winter successfully, year in, year out, because it's like any living organism. They adapt to its environment. If we started breeding without heating, our birds would eventually get used to the way of a life form. It's the way it is. It's to their own, shall we say?
So you'd keep things as they are in terms of our current calendar for the Budgerigars Society show calendar.
I think it works. I think it works because everyone loves the show season in the summer. Like it's good for the birds. I know sometimes it gets too hot in the show halls, but there's nothing stopping a show steward going around just fogging the area, maybe just change how the show is set up. You know what I mean? Add little things where the birds look like they're overheating. Just spray around. Don't spray them, but spray around.
Yeah.
Drop the temperature slightly. Maybe that could be brought in.
Okay.
I mean, the idea, the way the BS have brought the nearer and nearer to the summer months. Yeah, it's now sort of the BS Club Show, the first weekend of October, isn't it? Whereas when it was in November, I wasn't a fan of the show, to be honest.
No.
I very rarely went to the show when it was in I might go as a visitor, and I didn't show the birds because our birds were in October, you see. So I would have all the boxes and I wanted to have a show. So I mean, a few people would ring me and say, "Why aren't you at the show?" I don't want to have to go to a show in November. It's too late.
So it's just too late.
I never shown at the club show. We visit when we could, but our preference is where it is now is perfect for us.
It's back spot on. And how many shows do you do a year, chaps?
We do about 6 in the northwest. And
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the size of your show team normally, please?
Well, we're preparing about 60 birds.
We take on average between 40 and 47 to that's what we take to the show, 40 to 40.
That's a good number.
I think the club show was slightly different in the sense we entered 40 and we took 32.
And people that know us,
that was the lowest number of birds we took to a show last year, the club show.
People that know us, we like to show the different varieties. We must enter about 8 varieties, different varieties. So we like to spread it across the board. Because we've got a big stud, we can afford to do that. I would generally focus on particular colours that you like. Like the normals are very important for every bird because they bring you size. And if you're going to a good breeder to buy birds, normals are generally strong variety within their stud. So it's always good to get their strong point.
Well, all the birds, everything we do comes down from the normals. I think you'd agree. You can't, like the spangles we saw many years ago. I think I saw them in John Manus's aviary, the very first spangles, and they were very poor things to look at. But of course, Joe having the super birds, he put the super normals to the spangles, and all of a sudden, he's got spangles that can win back the show. And this is what all the varieties can be able to buy the normal birds. So it's very important, first and foremost, no matter what your varieties are, you should always have a strong set of normals because they back everything else up. You can put your normals on every other type of bird to keep your size. If your size starts to go, you're not going to be winning the CC in that particular specification. You've got to keep your bird at the standard size. I mean, today, the red eyes are as big as normals. The spangles have just said as big as normals, aren't they? So you've got to use your normals to improve your varieties, no matter what varieties you're in, is my opinion.
So you need that spine, that normal spine running through the stud to feed off of.
Yeah, like because when we last visited Joe Mann's in 2015, I went there asking Dan to try and get clear body. So we went to Joe and all we had was dark green clear body, and it was an average budgie, very very average. But we brought that back and we put that to our best sky blue. Our best sky blue end from that year. It was better. And we bred 3 clear body ends, and now our clear bodies are at a level where they're winning the CC, but they're also in contention for, they're getting looked at, whereas clear bodies never really ever got looked at. And this year we finished 6th champion young bird or last year, I should say, with a Texas clear body. But that's the commitment you need to put into a new variety, bringing into your field if you want them to compete. You have to put them to the best birds.
Would you guys? I know you've talked a lot about Joe Manners, and I've got a feeling that that's going to be like a whole different discussion, because I've not been myself, but I gather he's a real character, and everyone seems to have plenty of anecdotes where he's concerned. I mean, what did he do that was magic? Just briefly, what was it that really stood him out? Was it just his management, or his eye for the budgie, or where he got them, how he brought them in, or?
Sorry, when we were talking about Terry Pilkington before, and I've been well out of Terry, I rang him to get a few birds off him because I wanted to keep the line going. And he said, sorry, no, I've got nothing for sale. Now, it probably wasn't he had birds for sale, but he just didn't want me getting them. So then I phoned around a few people who I thought were good breeders. And in the end, I thought I'll have to go to Germany, you see. And so when you go to Joe Manners' aviary, there's loads of stories I could tell you go to Germany, but the thing you want to hear of is Joe Manners right now, because we haven't got all night. But when you walk into Joe Manners' aviary, it's 100 feet long by 30 feet wide. And the first 20 feet of when you walk in is his preparation area. In his kitchen, he has his breakfast in there, and that's his preparation area for the birds. And he has the birds, the cages to the left in that area are his show preparation room, and he's got all his show cages in the kitchen. And then you go through a little doorway, and then there's 120 breeding cages. Was when I first went. Now he doesn't use all those now because the man is now 84. He's exactly 20 years older than me. So he's only using maybe, I think he's still using about 70 of them.
Wow.
He's got the help of Linda. But the magic of those birds was for me is I'd never seen birds with such wide heads. The head was fantastic. And I always went to breeders who I believe had wide heads. But Joe just had them. He had them in every variety. His red eyes had wide heads. Fantastic. So a bit of a magical thing that I never kept albino. Yeah, never had an albino before. And this is sort of virtually 10 years after I'd been doing it. He had an albino hen in his sail flight. And I said, oh, Joey, albino. He said, oh, Frank, it's 2 years old, and I only have 2 babies. So if you take her, she is then in her 3rd year. It's very risky. I said, but she's a super albino. He said, yes, I grew a small amount of euros or German marks, whatever it was at the time, and I brought it over. And I didn't have a local breeder of albino called Bill Scarisbrick, and he brought an albino cock, a young albino cock, and I got a young grey-green. I made the pair. I didn't make the pair till February, and I got my first chick very early in the April. And that one, I got one chick in the first round, a cock, and I took that to the club show, and we won the season for best albino. That was the only.
Brilliant.
I got one more in the second round, but that was the only albinos I had in the shed. So Bill Scarisbrick said to me, "You jammy bug." He said, "That's typical of you. No one else."
Fantastic. Fantastic.
A little bit like with the clear bodies, Joe's just been mentioned. Within 2 years of having the clear body, we won best young clear body at the club show. 2 years, and again last year, 2 years running, we've had best young clear body, and we only bought one split off Joe. But so that's a kind of.
Yeah, that goes down to luck.
But then you make your own luck, don't you, through hard work, and I suppose you need it's a bit of both. what's the old saying that harder I work, the luckier I get? I think that's.
You know, I was saying to you there, I had lots of visits to 2 or 3 visits to Germany before I ever went to Joe Mann. It's in the late 80s. You see, I didn't go to Joe because I heard he was quite expensive and this, that, and the other. So we'd go to visit Leo Endres and Reinhard Maltenkin, you see. And we had some fantastic times. We would bring a few birds back and working with them. And of course, in them days, there was the sort of syndicate going to Australia. You may not remember this, but anyway, I was involved with that, the supply of birds to Australia. So anyway, one of the prospective breeders from Australia, Robert Manville, he rang me. He said, "Would you be willing to go to Joe Manus?" He said, "I'm going to send you £5,000 to buy 5 pairs of birds, £1,000 a pair." Now this is the year Joe was born in 1991, and we moved into our new house then. And Carol thought I was off my head because we were moving house and the new bedroom to build. I said, "But I can't turn this opportunity of a lifetime." He's £50 to spend at Joe Manus. We had no money because we were moving house. We were absolutely skint. I said, "I can't turn it down." So I couldn't go because Joe was in a Abbey. So I went with my friend Tom, and we got this 5 pair of to go, and that was my first time of visiting. But the idea was we breed from these 5 pair. Your go to Australia, German ringbird couldn't go to Australia. So the idea was we'd breed from these 5 pair, and any youngsters off them at the time following June, when the syndicate was leaving for Australia, any youngsters we had would go to Australia, and we would get the adults. Don't get
wow
of Manus adult birds for basically for going to collect them. That's how we got started with Joe. But that
brilliant.
Seeing how good Joe's birds were, I said, I've been wasting my time. He was so far ahead of Reinhard Maltenkin. His birds were totally different, a softer feather, beautiful feather. And as Joe would still describe it, as a charming feather. His birds are charming. Your birds, they should be charming to look at. It's ugly. It's in you put it in the breeding cage more solid. Charming birds are the birds that win on beautiful, charming birds. And he never saw an ugly bird at Joe's. So every year, or at least 12 years, I'm sure, we went back to Joe's every year. I never didn't have to because we thought we've got everything we need. You see, so
brilliant. And one of the questions I've got to ask you from one of the members was if the virus had to be virus or like COVID-19 related, if you could never go abroad again to buy a bird, I know you've said you'd gone to the millers. Is there anyone else that you would look to get birds from, or is it just purely the millers that you'd stick with for now, would you say?
I'd like to answer that. You see, what the millers' birds, from my visits there, the structure is very much like our own birds. We don't have double buff birds all over the place with no tail. They don't have long flight, and this is the same as our stud. So I feel birds from them will work well with our stud. Now, a lot of other people that I could consider, and they've got to be on the same level with quality birds for us. The sort of birds I do like right now is Ian Ainley and Scott Ainley. They're producing some wonderful birds. They're the best ones that I've seen in the last year or so.
Yeah, Ian will be sitting there right now if he's watching, twiddling his thumbs with a big cheesy grin on his face.
No, because Ian, that honestly, they
are
bringing
some.
Top. I think this isn't a sort of brag or nothing, but as you know, we're quite successful in the Northwest with our show bench results, and I think Ian and Scott are the ones that can give us the best run right now. Are you with me? I'm not insulting anybody else, but I think they have the birds to give us a run. So
Okay.
I think some of the show results last year will prove it. If you look at where our stud was there and he was there, Lancashire Cheshire Club Show, we were opposite sex young bird. He was young bird in show and best in show. We met him again at Southwest Lancs, didn't we?
Yeah.
I think he had an opposite sex award. We had best young bird. And then we met him again for the third time at Llandudno. We had best young bird in show and he had best in show. So
okay.
He's our most fierce competitor right now, as I see it.
Okay.
But Millers don't show in our area.
Well, they did win Southwest.
They won the Southwest Lancs show.
Yeah.
With the grey green, which was the rudder up to our grade last year. They'd be in with a shout in the Northwest shows if they came our way, I'm sure. But they obviously have their other ways of going with shows over their way.
With and again, these are sort of questions which I'm hoping will be really useful for sort of novices and well, then there's no beginners anymore, so they're just for novices and people around that level. Is it really important to go to shows to test your own birds, if for no other reason than to test your own birds against everyone else's birds to see where yours are? So you know where yours are because they're beating everybody. I go to shows because it's useful for me. Is that a good reason for people to show? Because I think often people look at their own birds with rose-tinted specks and they say, "Oh yeah, I've got good budgies," when in reality they haven't.
Yeah, well, I'll answer that because even in the shows proven, the most breeders per section is normally novice or novice. Yeah, novice is kind of the most popular breeders want to get out there and show what they've got, know where they are in the level of their rankings type of thing. And that's how you improve. You need to know your competition and what you need to do to improve your birds. So, yeah, I would agree to that.
I think there's always been the section of champion breeders throughout the years who have the birds at home and they don't show them. But I think the only way you prove to the public you've got the birds is to get them ready and put them in. You've got to put them in the shows to prove a point, haven't you? So
I agree.
For me, that's where I need to be. I'm not frightened. I've never been frightened to put the birds in a show, but I'm always confident because I believe the type of bird we breed is the right type of show bird. I think some of the breeders who stay at home are a little bit worried that maybe the birds they breed aren't quite good enough, and maybe that's why they don't bring them out. So what's their reasons? But the show bench is where we prove how good we are.
How will them breeders know what level they're at if they're not going to shows? So,
but for a novice in particular, I always think you don't know where you are unless you're pitching your birds up against these other people at your level at the very least. Is it? 100%. Would you not agree?
100%. Yeah, we both agree on that.
And of course, you know what? The show is where we all meet, isn't it? It's where. How do you get to see? Interact with other breeders of your same stature. It's great when we go to club show to see the Millers there, to see Ian and Scott, and all the others that turn up there, and they've all had their, most of them have had their little go. Jeff Corser, he's won best young bird once or twice and best in show or whatever. It's where we all meet at once a year, and these people who stay at home with it, that's the one show they should be at, and at least put a few birds in, and then of their best birds, of course, and that then proves where they're at. And best of luck to them if they can get one that gets in front of ourselves and some of the others who do really well. But absolutely. That's where they should be. And then maybe we get the numbers up at the club show.
Because to be fair, it's just a good weekend all round, isn't it? Win, lose or draw, I think. I certainly enjoy it. So.
You've got Well, that's just part of the social aspect of it all, is to be at that show.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, you've been imparting wisdom, and I've been firing questions at you for 2.5 hours. I can't believe it. So, thank you so much. But I've got a couple more that I'd like to get in before I let you go and put your feet up and chill out. Do you pull spots and tails ahead of shows, or 6 weeks ahead, or you just?
Well,
not spots. Well, tails are damaged.
Yeah, you take a tail out if it's broke.
Yeah,
But not.
I think
not as a routine, pull them all weeks before.
I know there's people out there who basically destruct the bird about 8 weeks before the show, so they're guaranteed maybe to have a full set of spots, all their flights, and 2 tails. Well, it's not my opinion that that's the right thing to do,
because you can damage.
If you pull a spot, say, just let's talk about the spots to begin with. If that spot is a new spot and it's only just regrown recently, the follicle will still have blood in it. And if you pull that spot while it's only just finished growing, you're going to damage that follicle and it won't regrow. You'll have that bird without a main spot for the rest of its days. So that's why I don't pull spots, because I've proved I used to do it. I had to do it to try it out, but I did it.
You've learned the hard way.
Some of the best birds didn't grow their main spots back. So I won't touch the spots. We take our chance with the spots. We trim them out. If they've got a bit of a spot that's damaged, say, yeah, I'll pull it, because I need a perfect spot for the club show, say. If a tail is snapped, we pull the tail. What you've got to watch with tails, particularly, if you pull a tail and it bleeds, that tail will never regrow again. And I've done that stupid mistake in the past as well.
So when you're removing a tail, the best time to pull a tail is if it's fully grown, and if it's damaged, pull it. But if it's, say, 3/4 grown and damaged, leave it. Does that make sense?
What I'd say to you, if you're going to get the habit of pulling tails, cut the tails in half with a pair of scissors about 10 weeks before the show. And then 4 weeks before the show, you can pull both tails and neither tail will bleed. Okay. That's a theory. Joe Manus taught me that one all those years ago. But I just think that is too much messing around for me. I can't be bothered with it. We basically do have the luxury in our stud. We'll catch, say we've got a show coming up, we'll catch 4 or 5 of our best normal grey, 4 or 5 of our best normal blue. And the ones that are in the best condition, if we've entered 2 in each class, the 2 in the best condition go on the day. It might be the one we really, really like can't go because he's got a flight missing or 2 flights missing. So we just leave that one home, and hopefully 4 weeks later, that bird can go out. But we don't start pulling flights and tails willy-nilly unless they're broken.
Not even for the club show? Not ever?
No, I've never done that even for the club show.
And, changing... Sorry, say again.
Well, the thing is, if you do that and you damage the feathers, that bird then is no good for the shows proceeding the following year. The way we look at it, when I produce what I believe is a show bird, or I should say Joe and I produce a bird we believe to be a really good show bird, we're open to still showing that bird when it's 4 and 5 years of age. A lot of our birds that go out to the show, they've done it many, many, many times before because they've been out since they were babies, and they're still going out when they're 3 and 4 years of age. Because the strength of our stud is, you mentioned when we first started talking at the start of the night, longevity. We've got birds that can go out and win the CC, and they're 4, sometimes 5 years of age, and they still breed. So
it's just luck of the draw. If he drops a flight or a tail or a spot, then you just have a reserve, and that's it. I suppose that's just life, isn't it?
I think in a small it's the end of the world for some people if their best bird can't go to a show. But it's not the case with us, because we have a lot of very good birds in most varieties. So it doesn't bother us for a bird not to be able to go.
The advice for people with smaller studs and that best bird is not going to be right, or you do have to pull his tail, be patient. The patient and everything with breeding, showing, everything that goes on, you just have to be patient with it. Your time will come. It could be the following year when you get to show that bird, but again, just be patient. It'll happen.
With extraction, guys, you alluded to that earlier. What kind of what fans do you use in your shed? Have you got inline fan or just the wall type, not bathroom type, but the industrial one?
Yeah, we've got a few of these small ones in windows and walls and things, but the main ones are in the middle of the ceiling in each building, and it's an industrial level extractor, and it's all the dust out through a big tube out into the air. We don't use any little pad things that, that you've got to clean the pad every.
Yeah.
No,
they're a bit old hat now, aren't they?
They're a waste of money. You need a proper industrial extractor fan. The bigger, the better. They're a bit noisy, but they do the job. Joe and I wear a mask in the aviaries, and it's very important to wear a mask to protect your lungs, etc. But when our big fans are on, we probably say to ourselves, "Why have we got this on?" But we just want to protect our health. You don't want. I say this for every breeder, starting or no matter what age you are. Always wear a mask in the bird room. The proper one with the nozzle, properly British standard mask, and you get used to it. You don't know it's on your face. You just get used to having it.
Yeah.
And because you can breathe properly with it, you don't have any. It doesn't sort of affect your health or in any way. You're still breathing normally. And we've used those. Well, Joe's been using the mask since he went in the bird rooms as a junior, and I wouldn't have it any other way. We don't enter the bird room. But I've seen so many people leave the hobby saying they just got on their chest. Why? Because they never wore a mask. If they had a mask on, they wouldn't be getting the dust on their chest.
And that dust is a problem. I mean, and you need those extractors for your own birds as well. I often worry what they're breathing in, but
the health of the birds as well, not just you.
Yeah, absolutely.
How fresh the air is in your bedroom. There's no sort of dust in their face, and they enjoy the environment because there's not dust flying around everywhere. It does the job for us.
But we have outside flights as well, so obviously when the doors are open,
of course, outside flights, the big windows are open, allowing the birds out, so you've got plenty of fresh air.
Yeah,
it's blowing everything towards the fans.
Right, thank you for that. What's your favourite pairing? I know you say you don't breed too closely, but what would you say is your favourite pairing? You're sort of talking in terms of the line breeding and obviously not being too close, but still a bit close.
Let's say what we don't do. We don't do father to daughter, uncle to niece.
Okay.
Well, I think
we don't do any of that.
What your question is probably is the type of feather. So, say the normal grey, that's one the club show for us. We put him to a similar shape hen to get the style of the show-bird. If we wanted to get a bigger budgie than the grey, we would pair him to a bigger bird. But
we don't. Those hens related in any way? They're obviously slightly related, aren't they?
We don't pair them up.
Yeah, we wouldn't. Even if they're a cousin, the second cousin might fall in, but we don't mean it to. Even cousin and uncle, stepsister, stepbrother, we don't do any of that. It's far away from it.
We don't check right all the way, but that's what we want to happen. We want the birds to be related background-wise through maybe 3-4 years ago.
Sure.
Together on this, because a lot of our birds do kind of look the same visually with the faces, etc. But it's come together as a line bred stud by not inbreeding.
Okay.
Put fertility first, you say, I always have done. What's the point of having wonderful looking birds if they're all infertile? And that's usually related to inbreeding.
Yeah.
So just don't get the best visual bird you can and pair them together, and just make sure the youngsters are not paired together in a related way. But you need a fair amount of birds to be able to make it successful. You can't do
How many lines? Sorry, how many lines would you say you've got in your shed? Is there distinct ones? Do you know, or is was there 4 or 5, just so you're able to keep them separate and not get too close?
Well,
do you think?
That's a good question, really. Because we like to keep the grey and sky blue in the same line.
Yeah.
Grey green with light green. Spangles, they mix into both colours of them. So you're talking maybe 8 to 10. It could even be more different types of lines. Because obviously we breed so many varieties. It's hard to really answer that with an exact question. Like going back to your previous question, your favourite pairing colour-wise, my dad pairs up 10 to 15 grey to sky blue. That's his go-to. That's where our strength comes from.
Okay.
But
Single factor grey.
Yeah, I like dark factor me, and a bit of the rare variety. So I'm a bit more of that. So
no, great in depth in our stud comes from the grey and the blue. That's where I believe the best birds are. But we won both adult grey and blue at the club show last year, and we've done that before. If you look back on the records of the club show, we've won the grey and blue CCs many times, young bird and adult. And I think it's probably the strongest sections of where we can pop up.
Absolutely.
But again, we have a large stud of birds, and saying to you how many different lines you've got, like, here's the difference and see. All the youngsters that's come down off the club show winner, they've gone into some of his sons have gone into the albino line. Some of his sons have gone into dominant pappy. They've gone into improve the spangles. Well, they're everywhere.
Okay.
We paired them to, we're not related to them. You see, so the lines that we use to create this line bred stud, if you like, all come very good visual birds.
So they okay.
Because I don't have how many lines on paper that we actually have knocking around the aviary.
Okay.
But unrelated. That's the point. Unrelated as far as possible. You come to pairs.
And do you bring in many outcrosses every year to sort of freshen it up and to?
Yeah. I believe you have to do that. Even in a big stud like ours, we bring birds in from somewhere at least once a year.
What numbers are we talking, Frank? How many did you bring in this year? Can I ask? Is that
this year 7? Was it 7, 8? We bought 8 birds before the COVID kicked off, and then obviously we have to. But we keep it fresh by bringing these birds in. But it has to be from someone. We've got to really like the birds before we go.
Yeah, of course.
I wouldn't want to bring birds in for someone who's suffering with this long flight and long tail. I wouldn't want them to kick off in my birds. You see, so and I know they've got wonderful birds. I'd rather just go to people who don't have that problem.
So you're not bringing birds in just to freshen the bloodlines up. You're bringing them in with the purpose of improving your birds all the time, or at the very least maintaining.
You're looking to improve, but it is hard to go into somebody's aviary, no matter who they are, and come away with birds like what we have. You're looking to get the best possible birds you can get your hands on. And sometimes you do get very lucky, by the way. You'll get a bird that's absolutely perfect, but usually it's going because it hasn't filled an egg.
Yeah.
For somebody, provided it's not an old timer, I will take it if it's, say, up to 2 years of age. I will have
Okay, that's really interesting. Okay. But other than that, for novices, and would you say you're looking for the best, or you're looking for a good baby off one of a breeder's best pairs, basically? Would that be, if you can't get the best birds, or they still got to be visually really excellent when you bring them in?
Poor bird.
Yeah, you're as a novice, you know you'll be lacking a feature within your stud. So you go to an individual and you will buy that feature. It doesn't necessarily have to be from their best line. If you're looking for a bird with spots, you can go into anyone's sale flight and he's got spots. I'll just put him to my wide-headed bird and hope for that perfect cookie to pop out. It's not about buying. It is more valuable if you do get related birds to people's best birds. Yeah, that's obviously you're creating yourself a shortcut. But if you're a novice and you are just looking for a certain feature, you go into each other aviary that you want to go buy birds off, and you find that feature.
Okay. Okay, so and this is probably my last question, because this is the one that seems to pop up the most. If someone comes to you or someone says to you, I'm kind of new to the hobby, I want to step up, do you suggest to them go and get some matched pairs from somebody, or would you say, and this is not for raw beginners, this is for maybe someone like myself or who's been in it a while, would you say go and buy a good stud cock and then run that across lots of different birds, or you have what?
You'd probably kill that bird off.
You go. So say if you were to visit our place, I'd recommend you to buy quantity before quality. So then therefore you've got our bloodline running in your stud. And then maybe 2 years down the line, you come back and go, okay, I want to step up to quality now, but less number. Or if you just come for one bird, which I don't really recommend, but if here's my budget and this is what I want to spend on one bird or maybe two, then you've got the better bloodline of our bloodline going into your bloodline as well as our bloodline already mixed. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So
yes.
The first initial, if you're a novice going into a champion, buy quantity before the quality, but then revisit 2 years down the line when you've got a generation coming into effect, and you buy quality instead of quantity.
Gotcha.
The point we're
Brilliant.
With people just starting as well, they need to learn how to breed the birds before they go buying these very expensive birds. Because unless you know how to use these birds, you are wasting your money. The bird probably will not breed for you, for one. So you walk into our bird rooms, I would suggest if we could find people, what we see in our sale birds, pairs of birds matching up with love pairs. You can get your hands on a pair of them. They are line bred to our stud. We would make sure they're not brother and sister or anything related. We're taught, and that pair, I could guarantee. You can't sort of say, oh yeah. Well,
99%
of the time, when we pair a love pair from our main flight, we'll get full eggs and chicks in the first round. The love pair is about your pairs pairing themselves up in the flight,
regardless of the quality of them.
And again, really, regardless of, don't worry, because you're learning. Yeah. You need chicks in the box. You need to know how to feed them. You generally you can't learn about feeding budget not catching any chick. But you've got to get chicks on the pairs to begin with. So love pairs is a way to go. I mean, we just sent someone pairs last week, about 7, and 2 pairs of them were love pairs. We spotted in the flight.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And we don't know how to pair them up when you get there.
Fantastic.
He was just starting, so
just someone like exactly what you're talking about.
So yeah, he was just starting, and we've sold him 7 pairs. 3 of them were pairs, so we kind of think, well, he's doing things right. His success is going to be a lot higher than 4 pairs or 2 pairs, and just to get going and get lined up.
I think young people now, we are not necessarily beginners and novices, as we call them. At one age they are, can be caught out going and buying these wonderful buff-looking birds, 2 years of age, who won't breed. They haven't been breeding. Somebody's hang them on to somebody else. It goes wrong. People, champion breeders should be trying to sell these new people. They know in their own ones that won't. They should be trying to give them the start they need. Selling them birds they know in their own heart. So.
Great, absolutely. Well, guys, I think we better wrap it up there, because that's been 2 3/4 hours of absolute magic. Thank you very much for your time. You've given it really freely and been really open and honest with us. So thank you very much. So yeah, a big thank you from everyone. I know we've got, well, I don't know the numbers, but we would have had loads of people watching tonight. So thank you so much. If you do win at the club show next year, I'm going to have to work even harder to come up with some questions to put to you we do our Sunday interviews. But guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Stay well and safe, and good luck with the rest of your breeding season. And we look forward to seeing you soon somewhere. So, but thank you very much again on behalf of us all.
Likewise, the questions,
very much.
Questions are great again.
And I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Best of luck to everybody. And please, anyone who's got any questions, you can email us or just ring us up. I'm quite happy to talk to anyone on the phone if they want to ring.
I'm available on Facebook, so people can ask me questions. If you miss things on here and you want to ask, I'm quite free.
Brilliant, that's so kind.
And
right, thank you very much.
It's in the back of the magazine, don't we, for people to view the different ways of getting hold of us. So please speak to us. We're always willing to help people out wherever we can.
Lovely. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John.
My day, Gary.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.